Chapter 315, Flower Slaves: The Last Gamble. Even the slowest person could clearly feel that the moment that determined life and death had arrived. The black serpent suddenly turned into a ball of thick and vicious black energy, and then it shot towards the fire begonia that was diving towards it from the sky. A cold light flashed through Zhuomo's eyes. The light void wings shook slightly, and his figure disappeared in the air. The 7th, 9th and 10th divisions of Vermilion Bird Camp attacked at the same time like three blades flashing across the sky. With the presence of death, they viciously sliced at Elder May. Boom! Everyone felt their vision darken, the earth shake like the world was ending. And then the sky filled with a blinding light illuminated the sky, formed from countless streams of fire shooting in all directions before disappearing. All of Brightwater City was alarmed by such a terrifying collision. Countless shouja flew into the sky and looked with terror in the direction of Hundred Flower Valley. The powers that had been preparing to come to the aid of Hundred Flower Valley saw this. They were shocked and stopped their movements. This was a collision on the level of Jindan. Compared to the earth-shaking black serpent, Zhuomo's attack was silent without even a whisper. Like a ghost, he appeared behind Elder Zhao. The glass-like right palm lightly pressed on Elder Zhao's glowingly alluring back. His action was warm, gentle, and without any presence. When Zhongru saw Zhuomo's move from a distance, his expression changed slightly. He felt awe that boss could cultivate, sky glass wave, to such a fantastical level. Elder Zhao's figure suddenly froze. She seemed to hear an authoritative low growl echoing throughout her body. The explosive power erupted like a volcano and the channels inside her body were instantly shredded. What made her feel as though she was going to die was the golden core inside her body had stopped revolving. No matter how she tried, the golden core did not move even a sliver. A hand suddenly grasped the golden core. Endless blackness swallowed her like a tide. Everyone in the 7th, 9th and 10th divisions raised their flying swords together. Everyone's blood was boiling in their bodies, their battle intent filled their bodies and almost causing them to combust. They furiously accelerated without keeping anything back. Accelerate. Continuous acceleration. There was only one goal in everyone's eyes. The leaders of the three divisions shouted at the same time, 100 kill. 100 kill. The shouja of the three divisions howled angrily, their flying swords slicing down. The three sword energies that flashed past at high speed gave off a blinding light in the air as their killing intent locked onto Elder May. Elder May's hair was loose as she glared, blood seeping out of the corner of her mouth. Facing the three enormous sword energies, she had a slight smile. Wave after wave of attacks had pushed her nerves on edge. She had long been at the end of her rope, and just hanging on by a breath. The plum tree in her hand had broken into pieces long ago, just leaving behind the bare main trunk. The three enormous sword energies headed straight at her face. The present's sharp sword essence was enough to freeze her blood. Was she going to be finally released? This was the last thought that flashed through her mind. The three enormous sword energies exploded at the same time. The blinding light consumed her. The Begonia Palace lantern was destroyed. Elder Wang was heavily injured and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. The black serpent swam and coiled in the air, and growled successively. One of the black horns that had just grown had been broken. It clearly was very furious about that. The black serpent had a vicious look in its eyes. It suddenly turned to a ball of black energy and smashed towards Elder Wang. It came extremely quickly. Elder Wang's movement was affected by her injuries and she was struck full on by the black energy. Bam! Like a meteor, Elder Wang was thrown into the ground. The pitiful Elder Wang wasn't a body-cultivating expert like Zhuomo. Such a strong crash was a fatal blow to her weak body. She was instantly killed. Su Yu's face was pale white, her eyes filled with hopelessness. The death of 3 Jindan elders was a loss that Hundred Flower Alliance could not bear. There was still a troop brimming with murderous intent in the sky. A thought suddenly flashed through her mind, was today the day that Hundred Flower Alliance would cease to exist? The light void wings on Zuomo's back slowly faded. The rich and explosive power inside his body quickly disappeared like a retreating tide. He looked at the other people. No matter if it was Vermilion Bird Camp or Guard Camp, everyone was furiously panting for breath. It was possible to see how fierce these battles had been. But all of them had smiles on their faces. Only they, especially because they had experienced the battle with Clear Sky Old Forefather in Little Mountain Jia, could feel the difficulty of this battle, could feel the improvement of their strength. This battle had disturbed all of Brightwater City. Countless shouja flew from Brightwater City towards Hundred Flower Valley. Zuomo glanced at the battlefield and grabbed Suyu. Suyu seemed to have lost her soul. She did not resist Zuomo capturing her. Zuomo was slightly reassured and said to Shu Long, "You guys go search and see if there is any more people you are familiar with. We'll take all that you recognize." Shu Long was moved. Without another word, he nodded and left with Guard Camp. Zuomo held Suyu and led the group to start looting Hundred Flower Alliance. Suyu's last thread of hope was destroyed and she was abnormally obedient. Zuomo felt great shock at the wealth of Hundred Flower Alliance. It definitely was one of the richest sects he had ever seen. Lingying sect which had been famed for its wealth in Sky Moon Jia, but it was very poor in comparison to Hundred Flower Alliance. Suyu was skilled in management. After 20 years of accumulation, the wealth of this enormous sect caused Zuomo to sink into an extreme frenzy. In the storeroom, 3rd grade and 4th grade materials were piled up in mountains. 5th grade materials were not rare. Zuomo even saw a large number of 6th grade materials. His drool almost spilled out. There were all kinds of ling flowers, including the seeds of rare ling flowers. To a person like Zuomo who would even pluck the feathers off a goose, how could he pass on such a good opportunity? Everyone in the forging division were sent over to transport the materials to the slave transporting ships. Zuomo decided to loot all of Hundred Flower Valley. The treasure rooms of the elders gave Zuomo joyful surprises again, especially Elder Wang's room which held many of her craftwork. The great majority of these were 5th grade talismans and above. Most of those were various kinds of flower lanterns. Even though there were not many items in the treasure rooms, but all of them were of very good quality. Zuomo did not hesitate in sweeping them all into his ring. The jade scrolls, including the jade scrolls the elders collected, and the ones that Hundred Flower Alliance had bought or obtained through other channels were also swept clean by Zuomo. Looking at the disciples that fled in fear, Zuomo was filled with scorn. After he finished looting, Hundred Flower Alliance would truly be dead. If this was a cohesive sect, all the disciples would have started to attack at this time, and not just watch as the elders risked their lives. This had to be said to be the tragedy of Hundred Flower Alliance. Shu Long found Zuomo. His expression was grave, and his eyes pained and sorrowful. "Boss, come look." Zuomo stilled, and followed Shu Long into an extremely deep cave in the mountain valley. When he saw the terrifying scene, his skin uncontrollably prickled. Hundreds of Xiao slaves had all kinds of strange ling flowers tangled on their bodies. The roots of these ling flowers were rooted in their bodies. Their gazes were unfocused, strange smiles on their faces. The ling flowers on their bodies were alluring as they were blooming. However, Zuomo who possessed ling eyes could clearly see the vitality of these Xiao slaves were slowly being lost. It seemed as though something suddenly exploded inside Zuomo's body. An unprecedented anger swept his body like it was burning. He suddenly gripped Su Yu's throat, and jerked her in front. Su Yu's face was twisted as her eyes showed pain. Zuomo's viciousness and brutality made her feel terror. "You group of scum." Zuomo squeezed the words one by one through his teeth. His hand tightened and crushed Su Yu's throat. Su Yu's gaze became muddled. Even until death, she could not understand how Zuomo could bear to act against her. Countless people showed goodwill towards her, and used all kinds of methods to curry her favor. She had always assumed no man would willingly kill her because of her unparalleled appearance. As long as she was docile and obedient, they wouldn't bear to. Zhuo distastefully threw Su Yu to the ground. Boss, what to do with them? Shu Long could not disguise the sorrow in his voice. As someone who had also been a Xiu slave, he felt it even more deeply. He could detect the vitality of these Xiu slaves were slipping away bit by bit into the Ling flowers on their bodies. In Zhuo's mind, Pu Yao suddenly said to him, "Don't remove those Ling flowers. If you move them even one bit, they will immediately die." Pu Yao's voice contained a rare thread of anger. "Flower slaves, I hadn't thought this method would have been passed down. Ling flowers grown on the bodies of flower slaves will take the flower slaves' purest vitality. The Ling flowers grown this way will be extremely high in quality. If you want to save them, there is only one method." Zhuo finally understood why 100 Flower Alliance had so many high-grade Ling flowers. The rage rampaged in his chest. He forcibly suppressed it, and asked in a deep voice, "What method?" "The primary energies of the flower slaves is being taken away, and they cannot escape death. There are only two ways to save them. The first is to replenish their energies using Lingdan and such. The other method is to use reverse absorption." Reverse absorption. Yes. The Ling powers can absorb the primary energies and vitality of the flower slaves, so why can't the flower slaves absorb the primary energies and vitality of the Ling flowers? Zhuo's eyes lit up. "How do you reverse it?" Pu Yao threw a ball of light to Zhuo. "I'll give you this, Flower Yao coexistence art." Pu Yao's voice was slightly heavy, and carried an imperceptible sorrow. In the past, during the war between Xiuzha and Yama, many Yama were like them. After they were captured, they were implanted with Ling flowers. They would die after a length of time after they were rescued. In order to save them, this, Flower Yao coexistence art, was created. I hadn't thought that this Yao art would be used again after thousands after years. Zhuo bit his lips and turned to say to Shu Long, "Take them all onto the boat." A hint of joy flashed through Shu Long's eyes. Boss definitely had a solution. He and guard camp hurriedly transported the hundreds of flower slaves to the slave transporting boats. Zhuo's mood was extremely bad. He felt there was a fire burning in his heart that could not be vented. He never thought of himself as an ally of justice. However, the treatment of the flower slaves had broken through his bottom line. He could not suppress his fury. Suddenly, he raised his head to glance at the sky and the several troops rolling in. Zhuo suddenly smirked coldly. Chapter 316, Enormous change. 3 powers had come, with between 2,000 to 3,000 people. They looked with shock at the devastated 100 Flower Valley. They had clearly seen the great battle of the Jindan just now, and at a closer distance, they could feel the ferocity of the battle even more clearly. 100 Flower Valley was in ruins. The mountain valley that had been prosperous and filled with flowers had disappeared. The people that came looked at Zhuo's group with eyes that held shock and fear. It had been these 3,000 people that had erased a sect that ranked in the top 10 of Sky Water Jie. Truthfully, they didn't want to be the ones to test the waters, but "Sir is really too arrogant in our bright water city," one of the leaders of the group said coldly, then continued, "You destroyed 100 Flower Alliance with just a few actions. Great moves, great attitude. We do not want to meddle in the grievance you have with 100 Flower Alliance. Combat is common, but it is too cruel of you to destroy 100 Flower Alliance." The one that spoke was the leader of one of the other groups, and he looked slightly old. "If you're wise, give us Su Yu, and we will spare your lives." This person's face was cold and indifferent, his murderous intent barely hidden. The three all had calm expressions. They predicted that Zhuo's group did not have the energy to fight after experiencing such a battle. Their intentions of taking advantage of the situation was evident. Zhuo glanced at Shu Long and the others. He found that they could not disguise the exhaustion on their faces. The great battle just now had expended everyone's energy. However, they were still quick in reorganizing themselves. No one was panicked or terrified. There was only calm on each person's face. Seeing that their words did not cause Zuemo and his fellows to panic, the faces of the three people that spoke couldn't help but darken. The strength of mind of the master of Golden Crow City's subordinates was greater than they had imagined. In their predictions, if they just slightly pressured the master of Golden Crow City, he would capitulate. They did not want the situation to devolve into a standoff. Just as the three were preparing to increase their pressure on Zuemo, Zuemo calmly spoke, "Suyu? I killed her." Hiss. Simultaneous inhales of shock rang out in the surroundings. There were hundreds of people that had come to watch other than the three factions. They all were Shouja that had been disturbed by the battle and came to watch. Everyone knew Suyu of Brightwater City. Many people's expressions became unnatural at the fact that such a strong local power had been easily destroyed by the mysterious power of unknown origins. What no one noticed was that some Shouja exchanged looks among themselves and quietly left the crowd. There were only 20 or so Shouja that left, hence they went unnoticed. But it was possible to see with the naked eye that many Shouja were quickly flying towards this place from Brightwater City. "The city master is in danger," one of the Shouja that retreated said with a worried expression. "These people clearly want to take advantage." They are really pulling a just excuse," another person said furiously. "We can't watch as city master lands in danger." This person seemed to have some status in this group of people. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone cannot forget the favor City Master did for all of us, giving us the chance to leave Little Mountain Jia, to see the light again. But there are just so few of us, with just us is definitely not enough. However, there's a lot of people that came from Little Mountain Jia in Brightwater City." The person said with a grave expression, "Have you thought of how our days in Sky Water Jia will be in the future if City Master is treated like this today? Those of us that came from Little Mountain Jia, will all of us be bullied like this? Right. They even dare to target City Master, we definitely won't hold a place in their eyes. Big brother, what do you suggest we do? Let's go to Brightwater City to get reinforcements," the person said decisively. "If we spread the news that City Master is in danger, no one from Little Mountain Jia will have any reason to stand aside and watch." The 20 or so people exchanged looks, nodded, and flew rapidly towards Brightwater City. "You killed Suyu." The three people had dark faces. Zuomo's expression was calm as he silently grasped a sonic lightning walnut in his hand. These people looked very well organized, but there were no Jindan Shouja. Zuomo released a breath at this. If a Jindan had come, Zuomo would definitely take his people and run for their lives. Seeing the other was wary and had not immediately attacked, Zuomo was happy to drag on the conversation. The other definitely would not expect that the Shouja of Vermilion Bird Camp had formations carved on their bodies that could automatically take Ling power from the air and recover multiple times faster than normal Shouja. The recovery rate of Shu Long and his group was even faster. When they recovered, he wouldn't be afraid of these 3,000 people, or even twice that. "So what? Do you have a relationship with her?" Zuomo raised an eyebrow. Laughs rang out from the crowd. The three people's expressions were not attractive. All three of them had lusted after Suyu's beauty. Other than the temptation of great benefits, they had the notion of taking Suyu into their houses. "Sect leader Su has a deep relationship with our sect. This one will definitely help get justice for sect leader Su," one of the people said hatefully. The other two did not speak, but their ranks pressed forward. The mood suddenly became tense. As the base of Hundred Flower Alliance, Hundred Flower Valley was not far from Brightwater City. The procession of 20 people quickly traveled to Brightwater City. They suddenly split up, and flew low through the streets. Channeling their Ling power, they shouted with all their power, "The Master of Golden Crow City is being surrounded. Brothers of Little Mountain Jia, if you're a man, stand up." The shouts were like thunder as they rolled in waves. The people traveling in the sky looked over. The leader of the group suddenly swept across the ground, and his eyes lit up. There was an enormous sound tablet about 10 zhang high below that swirled with purple light. A sound tablet agency. He instantly landed, and floated into the agency. Sir, a Xiuzhe came up. Before the other finished speaking, he took out a pile of jingshe and said in a deep voice, "Broadcast a message for me." As the others' ranks moved forward, Mo did not feel any pressure. The three troops could be called organized, but there was still a great distance from being an elite force. He was used to the great pressure from Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp. Mo wouldn't feel anything from this kind of degree of pressure. But he noticed the Xiuzhe in the surroundings seemed to stir as well, and his heart became wary. The individual power of the Xiuzhe at the edges were average, and they were not organized, but in Mo's eyes, the threat of these people was much greater than the three factions at the front. With just a slight provocation, they would lose their rationality. They would charge up, and then the situation would descend into chaos. That had happened many times before in Little Mountain Jie. Mo, who had crawled his way out of Little Mountain Jie, how could he neglect this? Just you guys? Mo said coldly. His eyes narrowed coldly like blades, cold and freezing. For some unknown reason, all three people jumped in fright. They suddenly remembered this youth in front of them just killed a Jin Dan. Their pupils suddenly shrank to pinpoints, and their expressions changed as they stared at the two silver walnuts covered in golden patterns that spun on Mo's hand. Sonic lightning walnuts. An exclamation suddenly came from the crowd. Some that had knowledge unconsciously retreated 20 zhang. All the eyes gathered on the two sonic lightning walnuts in Mo's hands. Those were sonic lightning walnuts. The terrifying presence that emanated from the two sonic lightning walnuts made one's heart jump rapidly. Sonic lightning walnuts were rare fourth-grade materials. Who would be so wasteful to forge sonic lightning walnuts into one-use talismans? The eyes of many people became extremely heated, but no one dared to move a sliver. When sonic lightning walnuts were forged into one-time talismans, they were things that even Jin Dan were wary of. However, what reassured them slightly was that while the power of one-time sonic lightning walnut talismans was astounding, but they could only be used once. The two sonic lightning walnuts slowly floated forward from Mo's palm, and it was possible to see lightning arc across the surface of each walnut. Whoosh, the Xiuzhe in front of Mo simultaneously moved to the sides. They didn't want to be at the front. Their eyes suddenly shrank again. Another two sonic lightning walnuts appeared in Mo's palm. The two sonic lightning walnuts floated up from his palm and floated in front of his chest. The four sonic lightning walnuts lined up in a row. Everyone's eyes tightly locked onto them, and didn't dare to move away. Many people uncontrollably swallowed. If it was said that the two sonic lightning walnuts had previously made people feel fear, then four sonic lightning walnuts was like pouring a basin of cold water on their hearts that had been shaken. If four sonic lightning walnuts exploded at the same time, the Xiuzhe that thought of this shook. When another two sonic lightning walnuts appeared in Mo's palm, the entire 100-flower valley was silent. 6 sonic lightning walnuts spun and twirled like 6 mischievous children restlessly in front of Mo. After a short period of utter silence, the Xiuzhe that had thought they had some power did not hesitate this time, and simultaneously retreated 50 zhang. The space around Mo was instantly empty. Where did this guy come from? Everyone felt they were going crazy. One move, and it was 6 sonic lightning walnuts. This extravagance was enough to smash most of the tycoons in Brightwater City. When the number of sonic lightning walnuts in front of Mo increased to 8, the 3 leaders had ashen faces. The morale of their troops reached their lowest depth. If taking out 8 sonic lightning walnuts in one go could not be considered the mannerisms of a rich sect disciple, then the top 10 sects of Sky Water Jia were as poor as street urchins. When the number of sonic lightning walnuts in front of Mo reached a terrifying 10, everyone was left numb. If 10 sonic lightning walnuts exploded simultaneously, all of them, including the 100-flower valley, would only have one fate: to turn to ash. When the number of sonic lightning walnuts reached 20, the people were not nervous anymore, and they relaxed. Maniac, why are they coming to a small place at Sky Water Jia to show off for? These young masters are really boring. All they know is to play dumb. Yes, they think we are stupid. Haha, those three factions are stunned now. They've offended a rich young master, just wait to get killed. Did this guy want Suyu? Tried to force himself, Suyu wouldn't comply, so he killed Suyu in anger, and destroyed 100 Flower Alliance, Suyu wouldn't comply. Another person rolled their eyes, who knows who tried to force themselves onto the other person. The tense mood in the sky suddenly became filled with humor. The three leaders were dumbstruck where they stood. Chapter 317, Clouds Gathering. Fei Shan was working idly and humming as he listened to the sound tablet. The people around him stared at him weirdly. It puzzled them how someone could appear relaxed and pleased when doing such a complex work. Only the Xiuzhe that came from Little Mountain Jie could feel so at ease with such tasks. He suddenly stopped what he was doing, and listened with concentration. Friends from Little Mountain Jie, the master of Golden Crow City is being entrapped in 100 Flower Valley in Brightwater City. Please come quickly to help. He listened very carefully. The sound tablet repeated it a few times. He stood up, and then started to walk towards the door under the strange gazes of everyone else. Where are you going? The manager's expression was slightly ugly as he lectured sharply, come back. You haven't finished what you are doing. Fei Shan bared his teeth in a smile, but his gaze was slightly murderous. The manager unconsciously shook and he didn't dare to look at Fei Shan's gaze. The words that followed were swallowed back into his stomach. Fei Shan ignored him, and left through the door. Walking on the streets, he instantly heard many people shouting loudly in the air. Brothers of Little Mountain Jie, City Master is trapped in 100 Flower Valley, everyone go get them. The City Master is in danger. We shall. All of Brightwater City was disturbed. People continuously flew into the sky. Fei Shan raised his head. The sky of Brightwater City was filled with people. Seeing what was happening, he suddenly recalled the scene of everyone following the City Master as they charged out of Little Mountain Jie through the experience of the months. Something inside his body seemed to have been ignited. He did not hesitate to channel his Ling power, and flew into the sky and entered the flow of people. They dared to move against the City Master. The killing intent inside increased. Every Xiuzhe around him had fury on their faces. This group of Xiuzhe had all experienced the cruel calamity of Little Mountain Jie and survived. They were full of gratefulness and respect towards Sua Mo, who had led them out of Little Mountain Jie. The master of Golden Crow City had led everyone out of the terrifying cage that was Little Mountain Jie. Now that City Master was in danger, how could they stand aside? A group of people were surrounding a sound tablet. Head, should we go? A mousy-looking person hurriedly asked his leader. The head glared. Of course we will go. They dare to even attack the City Master. Would they even leave us a way to live in the future? Kill them all. His subordinates instantly became excited and rumbled, kill them. They want to make an example of the City Master. They should first look and see what they are made out of. The head's face was murderous. The Xiuzhe that came out of Little Mountain Jie were much more sensitive to danger than normal Xiuzhe. In his view, this incident that targeted the City Master was a sign. It meant that their future days in Sky Water Jie would not be good. There were about 50 to 60 Xiuzhe that came from Little Mountain Jie, but all of them were Ningmai Xiuzhe. In Sky Water Jie, Ningmai was the most common group. This sudden rush of Ningmai Xiuzhe with battle experience had diminished the power of the local powers. The conflict between the Xiuzhe of Little Mountain Jie and Sky Water Jie was unavoidable. The Xiuzhe of Sky Water Jie knew this. So how could the Xiuzhe that had experienced even crueler battles in Little Mountain Jie be ignorant? Are we going to be able to get there in time? A subordinate said worriedly. The thoughts of normal Xiuzhe were much simpler. The master of Golden Crow City had led them out of Little Mountain Jie, and unknowingly became their spiritual leader. The great majority of people held a grateful attitude. Hearing that the master of Golden Crow City was trapped, they felt very angry. We're moving now. The head said with a cold snort, they think City Master is weak, he'll break all their teeth. This battle will be a great one. The head bared his teeth and had a vicious expression. He suddenly stood up, and glared as he brimming with murderous intent. See how I'll sort out anyone that slacks off today. Don't pack anything, we are moving now. These leaders feared Xiuzhe like clear sky old forefather, but they didn't have any caution regarding the other factions of Sky Water Jie. Even more, there was also the Master of Golden City there. The power of the Master of Golden Crow City had been deeply embedded in the hearts of these rebellious people. Many people had the idea. Wouldn't it be more tempting if they could persuade the Master of Golden Crow City to take everyone and sweep through Sky Water Jie? After continuous urging, the sky above Bright Water City was filled with Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie. The number of Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie that were in Bright Water City wasn't much, but there were still around several thousand of them. The Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie were easy to recognize. The killing energy they had was much thicker than normal Xiuzhe. Now each of these Xiuzhe had vicious glares. Is that group of people crazy? They dare to move against City Master. Who cares, kill them all. If the tiger doesn't roar, you mistake it for a sick cat. Everyone was very excited as they flew furiously in the direction of Hundred Flower Valley. The Xiuzhe of Bright Water City had never seen such a procession before, and were dumbstruck where they stood. Those Xiuzhe that were smarter raced back to report. Some older Xiuzhe had worried expressions. If the Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie and the Xiuzhe from Sky Water Jie had a conflict, the state of Sky Water Jie would become tumultuous. What many people did not know was that message broadcasted by the sound tablet had spread through all of Sky Water Jie. At this time, many Xiuzhe were traveling on their swords as they murderously flew in the direction of Bright Water City. If one looked down from the sky, they would see many sword lights gathering with astounding speed towards Bright Water City as though they were attracted by a magnet. The Master of Golden Crow City was the person of most authority of all the Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie. Without anyone noticing it, he was influencing the direction the affairs in Sky Water Jie would take. In the house of the Crow Marquis, Rong Wei saw the compound guard run in with a sound tablet and she was shocked. But when she listened to the message that was being repeatedly broadcasted through the sound tablet, her expression instantly changed. Damn it! Were those people crazy? She knew just how powerful and terrifying the Master of Golden Crow City was. The elite force under his command surpassed any troop in Sky Water Jie. She remembered the scene of those Xiuzhe bowing in farewell towards Suemo. If the Master of Golden Crow City made a call right now, she uncontrollably shook. That was too frightening. The Marquis was not here. This was not good. Rong Wei was like an ant on a hot plate and spun in panic. At this time, a paper crane flew from the sky. Rong Wei waved her hand and the paper crane fell into her palm. When she finished reading, her expression changed dramatically. Bright Water City, Sky Immortal Pavilion. These people from Little Mountain Jie are so aggressive right now. In the future, won't they try to climb on top of our heads in the future? A middle-aged Xiuzhe's expression was dark. He was the sect leader of the largest power in Bright Water City, Yan Yang of Woodsword Sect. We need to let them know whose territory this is, a Xiuzhe with a waxy yellow face said faintly. He was wearing a golden-threaded long robe, had bright eyes and an authoritative presence. He was the sect leader of Cloud Divine Sect, Hichio. Woodsword Sect and Cloud Divine Sect were the largest two sects in Bright Water City. Bright Water City was the most prosperous city of Sky Water Jie, and was home to 4 of the top 10 sections. Other than the 100 Flower Alliance that Zuemo had destroyed, Woodsword Sect was placed 5th, Cloud Divine Sect was placed 7th, and the other, the Blackwater Sect was 10th. All the other sect leaders present nodded their heads. It had touched many people's nerves that the Master of Golden Crow City had attacked 100 Flower Alliance. Woodsword Sect and Cloud Divine Sect had marriage alliances with 100 Flower Alliance. Zuemo had moved to destroy 100 Flower Alliance before the other sects had managed to react. If he had taken some more time, his victory would not have been so easily achieved. Blackwater's sect does not want to meddle in this matter. That's good, one less person to share in the spoils. Yen Yang's expression was cold. The other sect leaders had joyed expressions. In their view, with Woodsword's sect and Cloud Divine's sect as the leaders, the master of Golden Crow City wouldn't be able to make any waves no matter how powerful he was. They had long heard ago that the master of Golden Crow City was very rich, and the 5 enormous slave-transporting boats that were filled with all kinds of talismans and rare materials. They were truly treasure ships. Even more, now there was also the enormous wealth of 100 Flower Alliance added to the spoils. How could people's hearts not be moved? Many sects were jealous of 100 Flower Alliance's flower-growing methods. If they could receive the Ling farming methods for the Ling flowers, they would have another steady source of income. So when the 2 big sect leaders called out, many small sects responded. The House of the Crow Marquis, the leader of a small sect, muttered. He Chio's expression was natural. No matter. I have already notified them. I believe they can see the state of affair clearly. Everyone, go back and prepare. Let's set the time for noon tomorrow, Yen Yang said. The sect leaders stood and went back to prepare. After everyone had left, only Yen Yang and He Chio were left in Sky Immortal Pavilion. He Chio asked, how many people are you preparing to bring? I heard that the master of Golden Crow City has 2 elite forces. I really want to see how they compare to my Woodsword camp, Yen Yang said proudly. Woodsword camp was the most elite troop of Woodsword sect, and was famed through Sky Water Jie. He Chio clapped and smiled, I also had the same idea. How about we each take a troop and see who will win? The Flying Cloud Camp and Cloud Divine sect was also an elite force known in Sky Water Jie. If both you and I win, then what? Yen Yang looked at He Chio. The first one to win is the winner, He Chio smiled. The flower slave growth method of 100 Flower Alliance supposedly originated from the 1,000-year battle. How about we use it as our prize? But since the city master of Golden Crow City has no Jin Dan, if we use Jin Dan to pressure people, we will not win honorably. You and I cannot take Jin Dan. What does sect leader Yen think? A light flashed through Yen Yang's eyes, wonderful. The 2 exchanged a look, sparks flying, and did not stand down. The atmosphere of Bright Water City suddenly became tense, and the number of shouja that flew through the air dropped dramatically. Many stores that got the news of the battle closed their doors. Tian Ling Zi and the other 2 people looked at the large patch of sonic lightning walnuts that floated in front of Zhua Mo, and their mouths tasted bitter. They really hit a steel board this time. The other had mysterious origins, and his power was far greater than they had imagined. They couldn't describe the bitterness inside. Such a big personage like you, why did you run to such a poor gutter like Sky Water Jie for? Can't you give us a road to live? A paper crane suddenly flew into Tian Ling Zi's hand. After Tian Ling Zi finished looking, the shadow on his face was swept away and he roared with laughter. The other people looked with unfriendliness at Tian Ling Zi. They really couldn't think what could make Tian Ling Zi so happy in such terrible circumstances. Tian Ling Zi passed the paper crane to the other 2 people, and smiled smugly. Sect leader Yen Yang of Woodsword sect and sect leader He Chio of Cloud Divine sect will be leading their army tomorrow to take this little boy's life. After the 2 finished, they all had joyful expressions. Haha, we really have foresight. We only need to drag down the master of Golden Crow City, and we will definitely have a mention in the merit record. The 3 looked at each other and laughed loudly. They were completely ignorant that danger was approaching them. Chapter 318, Human Wrecking Ball. Zhua Mo and Lil Miss looked at each other, and understood what the other was thinking. It hadn't been long but Vermilion Bird Camp completely finished their recovery. The supplies of Vermilion Bird Camp was generous, and each person carried enough Jingshur so that they could quickly recover Ling power. He glanced at Shu Long. Noticing Shu Long's nearly imperceptible nod, he had to silently praise the powerful recovery speed of Imo skills. The power inside his body had also silently recovered. The strength of the great Damo physique far surpassed both the guard camp and his imagination. Damo straightened his spine and looked at the three troops opposite him. His heart was filled with the belief that they would win. The silent feeling of confidence had formed between these people without their own knowledge. He shifted his body. Almost at the same moment, Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp started to move. Vermilion Bird Camp was like a gust of clear wind. As the troop gathered and scattered, it was ethereal and nimble, carrying its unique sharp killing intent that was like a blade. While the Guard Camp was like a dense steel flood. They were not quick, but they were a tyrannical wave of destruction. Damo was at the very front of the troop. He pressed his lips together tightly, his eyes slightly slowed as his body stood straight like a spear. The sonic lightning walnuts that flew around his body drew out threads of silver light. On his left rear flank was Vermilion Bird Camp waiting to act. If one looked closely, they would find the entire Vermilion Bird Camp was like a compressed spring that was silently trembling and filled with the aura of danger. Gongsun Cha did not sit on the broad green cloud sword like he usually did. He had stood up, his eyes curving into crescents, and a shy smile on his face. A blade-like light flashed through the eyes of the Vermilion Bird Camp Shouja. On his right rear flank, the Guard Camp was silent and motionless. They were like a troop of battle servants from thousands of years ago. Shu Long was at the very center of the troop, steady and murderous, yet motionless. The black heavy armor encased them tightly, and separated them from the outside. The fiendishness from the slightly lowered eyes made people feel the battle intent roiling away behind this deathly silent flood. Damo and his people's movements instantly attracted everyone's attention. Tian Ling Zi's trio changed expression. They commanded their troops to retreat 50 zhang. Damo's action of taking out 20 sonic lightning walnuts had destroyed their notions of taking advantage of the situation, but the news that came had given them the hope they could share in the spoils. They had made the decision to not provoke the master of Golden Crow City. As long as they managed to keep track of him, then after tomorrow's battle they would receive some merit. They prepared to distance themselves at any moment. Damo decided to fight quickly. He raised his right hand and then chopped down hard. Kill! A cold light flashed through Miss Crescent eyes. Vermilion Bird Camp, who had been waiting for the signal, suddenly exploded. Hundreds of sword energies tore the air. Howls shrieked through the air. Shu Long gave a low shout, "Kill!" The black energy shifted and twisted. Thousands of black energy threads gathered and formed a black flood in the general shape of a snake. Waves of deep shrieks came from inside. The sky seemed to have suddenly darkened. The aura of destruction and the terrifying killing energy filled the sky. Everyone paled. The trio felt their limbs turn cold. Each of them had pale faces. Only now did they realize how idiotic their ideas were. Regret filled Tian Ling Zi's heart. At this time, he could only shout at the top of his lungs, "Retr," his pupils suddenly expanded. He lowered his head, and saw a hand bursting out from his chest. The Shouja around Tian Ling Zi looked at him as though they saw a ghost. The terror inside their eyes spread through their hearts like spiderwebs. A figure with golden wings on its back disappeared from their field of view. This attack was flawless. The light void wings on his back lightly flapped, and a rich flow of power seemed to flood in like the tide. His figure was like lightning and flew out a great distance. Damo did not feel any panic at being in battle. His mind was unusually serene. He carefully experienced the power from the light void wings behind his back. Under the terrifying power, it was not an easy matter to control his posture. This battle, however, was the perfect chance to learn. As for the sonic lightning walnuts, wastefulness was shameful. The light void wings on his back shook, and his vision blurred. He appeared half a zhang in front of a Shouja. Uh-oh. Damo, who had just been very smug, made a strange sound. Before he could react, he smashed onto the other's Ling shield. Ping! The Ling shield instantly broke. Damo's earlier momentum did not dissipate, and heavily collided with the other. Zhuo only heard a wail and the sound of bones breaking. It was like he hit a sandbag. He unconsciously moved the light void wings on his back. A strong force passed over, and his figure uncontrollably disappeared again. He was like a person-shaped wrecking ball that had completely lost control and bounced between the people in the crowd. But his great Damo physique was very strong. Adding on that terrifying speed, bones broke and limbs tore off wherever he passed. The wails echoed in his ears. He saw the others could not wound him and decided to ignore them to concentrate on controlling the light void wings. Only when he could truly control the light void wings would he have the true assets to fight against Jin Dan. Every one of the 6 transformations of the great Damo physique were powerful. If he could adeptly use them, his power would furiously grow. Vermilion Bird Camp used a completely different style. Each platoon was like a blade. They were like butchers dismembering ling beasts, accurate, at ease, and without hurry. Guard Camp was still unmoving at their spot, but the crazily dancing black energy was changing strangely. It suddenly gathered and scattered, sometimes turning into a large snake, and sometimes as countless small snakes. The unpredictability and strangeness of the little Mo kill was fully expressed. However, no matter if it was the waves of charges from the Vermilion Bird Camp, or the little Mo kill of Guard Camp, none of them dared to go close to Zhuo Mo's dashes and crashes made everyone in Vermilion Bird Camp feel shock, and distance themselves. If they were accidentally hit, they would end here. Any Shouja that boss hit had wailed, flew out a long distance through the air like a sandbag, and was smashed to pieces as they crashed into the ground. No one was left alive. No one was left alive if they were hit. Their hearts felt a chill. They could clearly see that boss posture when he hit others was very strange. This sign made it evident that boss could not fully control himself. If they were killed due to being hit while boss moved uncontrollably, that was a true embarrassment. Who could they complain to? The Shouja of Vermilion Bird Camp distanced themselves from Zhuo and traced out a long arc to circle around to kill the Shouja that wanted to escape. Gong Sun Cha's smile had frozen on his face. He was looking with shock at the sky. Compared to Vermilion Bird Camp's avoidance, Guard Camp was even more depressed. When they had seen Vermilion Bird Camp moving aside, they had been slightly proud. Since they were attacking from a distance, they were very safe. But shock quickly came onto Shu Long and the others' faces. The black energy of little Mo kill would go crazy and become uncontrollable for some unknown reason if it neared boss and dispersed in all directions. In this short period of time, the black energy expended on the enemies wasn't as much as the black energy that boss had scattered. What situation was this? Having met such a strange situation for the first time, Shu Long could only grimace. Out of helplessness, he could only control the little Mo kill and attack the enemy from the fringes. An extremely strange scene played out in the battlefield in the sky. Little Mo kill and Vermilion Bird Camp formed the borders of the battlefield together like a steel wall. No Shouja was able to escape. Inside this sphere, the sound of impact continuously rang out. Zhuo saw the other was not able to damage his great Damo physique and decided to not care about his posture, and just focus on controlling the light void wings on his back. Therefore, he used all kinds of peerlessly strange positions and astounding speed to hit one Shouja after the other out of the spherical battlefield. The people of Vermilion Bird Camp were alert. They were nervous about the enemies that were hit. No one would add another blow to these people. What they were alert about was not getting hit by these enemies. There was an unfortunate Vermilion Bird Camp Shouja that had been lightly injured by an enemy that had been sent flying. It was a calamity from the heavens. After a while, the enemies inside the spherical battlefield had completely collapsed. They furiously attacked the outside border. In the sky, the blade-like charges instantly started. Little Mo kill was activated at full power without anything held back. The wails of the enemy rang in their ears. Flowers spun out in the sky, and like dumplings, they continuously fell down. The minds of these sky-water Jia Shouja had been robbed, and their morale was at its lowest point. The entire troop was collapsing at a rapid rate. Having lost the commander, with collapsing morale, without motivation, they were just rabble. In front of elite troops like Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp, they were a group of sheep waiting for slaughter. The merciless slaughter only continued for a short hour before the entire battlefield was cleared. None of the spectating Shouja were able to maintain their calm. They looked with pale white faces at the empty battlefield, and looked at the master of Golden Crow City's subordinates methodically looting the battlefield. These people's practiced and crisp actions, these movements that did not have any presence of killing, made the Shouja from Sky Water Jia smell the scene of blood and fire after such a battle. So weak. Lei Peng jerked a jade pendant from a corpse as he snorted coldly. Just this group of trashy people, and they want to attack us. They really don't know anything. People die for wealth, birds die for food, what's so strange about that? Weren't we the same in the past? Nian Lu did not even raise his head, his movements were clean and brisk. Lei Peng stilled at the words. Tilting his head to think, he nodded and said, "That's true." He then furrowed his brow and said, "But we are no longer the same." "But how are we not the same?" Nian Lu's hands stopped moving. He straightened his spine, and said seriously. "We aren't the same now." But he also could not pinpoint where they were not the same. After thinking fruitlessly for a while, Lei Peng was impatient. "Whatever, what are we thinking about that for? Just follow boss. In any case, and was thinking that our way of living now isn't so bad. It's worth it even if we die." Nian Lu made a sound of agreement, his eyes deep. "That's right. We lived long enough since we didn't die in Little Mountain Jie." Zhuo Mo panted heavily. It was the first time he tried out close combat fighting in a real fight like this. He hadn't felt it before, but when he stopped, he felt his entire body was unspeakably sore. He inhaled sharply. It looked as though this great Damo physique had its limits. He couldn't be so brash in the future. "You guys are too vicious." A choked female voice came from the sky. Zhuo raised his head and found a female Shouja within the crowd was swearing and pointing at his nose. The surroundings suddenly became silent. The faces of the Shouja beside Zhuo all darkened. "What? Do you want to kill me too?" The female Xiao proudly flew out of the crowd. Her eyes held tears, and her expression was excited. They weren't even defending themselves. Why can't you give them a road to live? Why do you have to kill them all? Chapter 319, If you want to fight, fight. Zhuo rolled his eyes. He decided to ignore her. This kind of woman didn't have a clear head. Since the two sides had started to fight, if one spoke of benevolence, wasn't that just asking for death? Crazy person. "Let's go." He turned his head and said. Shu Long led guard camp back to the slave transporting ships. They were able to fly for short distances, but their speed was slow. They liked using the steady slave transporting boats more. The Vermilion Bird Camp swam in the sky as they warily looked at the surrounding Shouja. "Come on, kill! Kill!" The emotions of the female Xiao became increasingly excited. "You killed so many people already. You shouldn't be afraid of killing one more." "What? You don't dare. You people from Little Mountain Jia come to our Sky Water Jia and the first thing you do is to kill. Go back to your Little Mountain Jia, we don't welcome you." The surrounding Sky Water Jia Shouja shifted. The female Xiao's words really struck many of the Sky Water Jia Shouja's hearts. They were already very resistant to the Shouja of Little Mountain Jia. Many people's eyes became unfriendly. Some of the powers that had been observing started to shift. Zhuo Mo's face suddenly became cold. He stopped in the air. Vermilion Bird Camp started to consolidate. Having just stepped onto the slave transporting boat, Shu Long's face darkened. The faces of the other people became ugly. They came from Little Mountain Jia and were abnormally sensitive to the atmosphere of their surrounding environment. They felt enmity. Zuo did not speak. He was not shocked at this scene. To the Xiuzhe of Sky Water Jie, they were just outsiders. The arrival of Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie had already significantly changed the status quo in Sky Water Jie, which was why their enmity was so strong. You won't even have mercy on women? The more the female Xiu shouted, the more sorrowful and angry she became. Didn't you kill sect leader Suyu? What? If you have the guts, then kill me. The voice suddenly stopped. The head that flew into the air, her expression full of disbelief. She seemed to still be unable to believe that Zuo dared to kill her under the eyes of the public. The Xiuzhe of Sky Water Jie instantly rumbled. Many people also had expressions of disbelief. Too arrogant. Everyone, let's kill them. The people from Little Mountain Jie dare to come run amok in our Sky Water Jie. Everyone, fight together. The crowd was extremely furious. Many people had blood-filled eyes as they yearned to fight. The powers that had been observing from the side were slightly wavering. Their subordinates had already sank into argument. Listen well. Zuo coldly stated. For some reason, there seemed to be a fire burning in his chest. While in Little Mountain Jie, he had assumed that after leaving Little Mountain Jie he would find paradise. Yet what he never thought was that he would immediately encounter something that broke through his bottom line in Sky Water Jie. He thought of those flowers slave with scattered minds and dazed expressions, entirely wrapped in ling flowers. The scornful ruckus in the surroundings entered his ears. He wanted to laugh, but he found that he wasn't able to laugh. There seemed to be a breath stuck at his chest. Savagery and killing intent twisted and roiled in his chest. Therefore, he spoke. The surroundings instantly became silent. I don't care who you are. If you want to fight, fight. His eyes were deep, and his voice seemed to float across from far away. Don't waste words. We can't compare to you, we are much cleaner and in the open. The surroundings were deathly silent. The people looked dazedly at the master of Golden Crow City in the air. No one had expected that the master of Golden Crow City would say such arrogant and tyrannical words at such a time. Was this person crazy? Did he really think he could really do what he wanted in Sky Water Jie with just the people he had? Everyone was shocked by Zuo's words. No one spoke. Zuo slowly looked around. His sharp gaze made many people have the impulse to turn their face away. He raised his right hand in the air. Anyone that attacks, kill them. The voice was like the wind and snow that blew in the winter, not loud, but it was chilling to the bone as it swept everyone's hearts. No matter if it was Vermilion Bird Camp, or Guard Camp, everyone, including the Forging Division, all of them felt their blood boil. An indescribable feeling came from their hearts. They couldn't help but shout together, kill. The shouts of several thousand people together were like thunder as it spread. The Sky Water Jie Xiuzhe that had been wanting to fight were all stunned by this shout. Their slightly heated heads instantly cleared. They had never heard such a fierce and domineering presence from any other troop. The master of Golden Crow City and 100 Flower Alliance had personal grievances. That wasn't a secret in Sky Water Jie. Ever since the master of Golden Crow City had led tens of thousands of people out of Little Mountain Jie, he had instantly entered the attention of the large powers of Sky Water Jie. The origins of the master of Golden Crow City were mysterious and were hard to find. But the presence of the 100 Flower Alliance insignia on the 5 slave transporting boats gave them a great deal to speculate on. One factor for their attention was that they desired the wealth of the master of Golden Crow City. Supposedly, the 5 slave transporting boats were packed with large numbers of talismans and materials. After defeating 100 Flower Alliance, the spoils would be even richer, and greed made their hearts move. Another factor was the rejection of Little Mountain Jie Xiuzhe by Sky Water Jie Xiuzhe. The factions were especially unaccepting of any power that could destabilize their influence. Just as the factions looked at each other and wanted to discuss, their expressions changed, and looked towards the sky. Large patches of dots appeared in the sky. Before they could see clearly, the blinding sword energy that lit up when people were flying on the sword at their fastest speed lit up the entire sky, and forced them to narrow their eyes. City Master! Ha! It's the City Master! The shouts came like a tide. These little mountain Jia that had come to help were very excited at this time. All of the surviving Xiuzha from Little Mountain Jia were Ningmai, and they were in their 40s or above. They were used to the way of the world. However, none of these people could keep their composure. Fei Shan was not an exception. He found he could not calm down. He suddenly recalled the magnificent battles at Golden Crow City. They were deeply embedded in his heart. He still remembered his emotions at that time, especially when the city master had led everyone to swear at the clear sky old forefather. He had imagined how exhilarating it would be to fight under the command of the master of Golden Crow City. He hadn't thought such a day would really come. He was very excited. The master of Golden Crow City looked to be in his early 20s. Among these 50 and 60-year-old Ningmai, he was somewhat outrageously young. But this youth that was outrageously young seemed to have a charisma that made people trust and obey him, and to be willing to fight for him. The Sky Water Jia Xiuzha jumped in fright, and hurriedly rode their swords to flee. In a short while, all of the Sky Water Jia Xiuzha had left the enormous 100-flower valley. This change was so sudden that some little mountain Jia Xiuzha were too excited and wanted to chase before they were pulled back by their fellows. Stop shouting. Listen to the city master. Which of you is more able than city master? Everyone listen to the city master. The heads of the little factions in this crowd of Xiuzha spoke, and those Xiuzha making a fuss instantly closed their mouths. In terms of command, no one dared to compete against Zhuo Mo. At the beginning, Zhuo Mo was quite puzzled. When he was informed that these Xiuzha had all heard that he was in danger and came to help, he was dumbstruck where he stood. He was very moved. Truthfully, he had never thought of these people when he fought with Clear Sky Old Forefather. He just did it for himself. So he had never thought these people would remember this. His heart was very warm. The darkness created by 100-Flower Alliance was swept away. The sun seemed much brighter. He bowed towards the people. This one thanks everyone here. This group of Xiuzha instantly became panicked. What is City Master doing? City Master saved our lives, this is what we should do. Yes, yes, the people spoke over each other as they returned the bow. After standing up, Zhuo Mo swept the surroundings and said with a smile, let's go down to rest. The people all agreed and landed on a mountain in 100-Flower Valley. Everyone felt very close upon seeing each other, and they were even noisier when they gathered together. Each person had a sunny smile on their face. Some chatty people had grouped together and started to converse. The heads of some of the factions were circled around Zhuo Mo as they held a discussion. City Master, I just received news. Cloud Divine Sect and Wood Sword Sect have gathered more than 10 smaller sects and are planning to attack us tomorrow, a faction head said worriedly. To be able to become a leader, he naturally had his talents. This leader's abilities could not be underestimated as he was able to place spies in Bright Water City so quickly. Seeing many people were unmoved, he hurriedly explained the status of Cloud Divine Sect and Wood Sword Sect in Sky Water Jie. After his explanation, everyone all inhaled sharply. Zhuo Mo's expression was normal as he raised his folded hands to this leader. I have not asked for this big brother's name. This leader said with some panic, City Master is really troubling this one. This one is Zheng Wei. City Master can just call me by name. Don't say anything more about Big Brother. Zhuo Mo smiled. Can Head Zheng give us some more details? Zheng Wei hurriedly narrated the news that he had just received from the beginning, and introduced the sections. After he finished, everyone was silent. The other side's strength far surpassed their imagination. If there really were so many people. Everyone turned to look at Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo unconsciously furrowed his brow. He felt shocked at this news. If he had received this news in any other circumstances, he would only do one thing, take everyone and flee. But right now, he would not flee. He was sure that if he fled, the other Shouja of Little Mountain Jia would become the targets to vent hatred. The Shouja of Sky Water Jia would use this chance to weaken the powers of the Little Mountain Jia Shouja until they were sure the Shouja of Little Mountain Jia were not a threat to them. He previously had not felt these Shouja had any connection to him, but now that he knew he could not just leave and end it. Many paper cranes suddenly flew in from the sky and into the crowd of people. Ha, Li Shaoxi can arrive tonight. I just knew they wouldn't be able to stop themselves. Haha, old man Yang has his brothers and is hurrying over. Several paper cranes flew into Zheng Wei's hands. After Zheng Wei finished reading, he was overjoyed. He said excitedly, City Master, they've all come. Everyone is coming. A blush came onto Gong Sun Cha's face. His smile was even more bashful and shy as his eyes flashed with an unusual brightness. Xu Long stood silently beside Zhuo Mo, but his heavy breathing exposed the desire for battle inside. Zhuo Mo's mood was unsteady. He suddenly stood up as he looked towards Brightwater City. Well then, let's fucking fight. Chapter 320, Move Out. The night came. The mountain peaks of Hundred Flower Valley were filled with light and sound. Zhuo Mo stood at the highest mountain peak. The campground below was very busy. His gaze turned to the empty darkness that held unpredictable dangers. He knew that many eyes were staring back at him from the darkness. The people were waiting for tomorrow to come. But thick clouds blanketed the entire sky. There wasn't one thread of moonlight. A hint of mirth floated at the corner of his lips. Ma Fan was sneaking in the darkness like a ghost. His movements were soundless. What was even more astounding was that none of his movements created any ripples of Ling power. Lei Peng and the others that were watching from far away had expressions of admiration. Ma Fan had taught all of them hidden movement spells, but when Ma Fan activated the spells, he wasn't just slightly more familiar with them. His actions were light and relaxed. As expected of the corps that Lil Miss had appointed. Ma Fan crouched as he moved stealthily like an intangible shadow. He was merged into the darkness. The noises from Hundred Flower Valley could be heard from afar, and contrasted against the silence of the surroundings. He suddenly thought of his life in the past, before he had encountered Boss. He had frequently had to do work that required traveling in the night. He did not like darkness. At that time, he had only wanted to find a steady job and not have to fight for his life in the shadows. After the calamity of Little Mountain Jia, his situation had deteriorated even more. Fortunately, he had several good skills and managed to survive, but the desire for a stable life had gotten stronger. He wasn't a person with ambition. Being appointed the corps by Lil Miss had not made him happy. It was the opposite. The training that he had done far surpassed everyone else. He improved very quickly. Even now, he was one of the two people that had the most influence in Sky Peak Platoon. He had originally assumed he would quickly feel tired. This life of training every day was not something he wanted. But to his shock, he found he did not dislike it like he had predicted. He had started to accept this troop and gradually started to like this troop. It wasn't for the stimulation of battle, or for those spells and formations, but for hope. This troop, without him noticing it, made him feel hope, feel sunshine. Even if he was walking in the darkness, he didn't have any negative feelings like he did in the past. Every person behind his back made him feel safe and trusted. Thinking about that, his eyes unconsciously glanced to his side. The space there was empty. Usually Xia Shan would appear at that spot. A few days ago Xia Shan had entered secluded meditation, and had not come out even now. He couldn't help but feel slightly worried. After being paired together for such a long time, they cooperated very well, and had great feelings for each other. His expression suddenly shifted. He stopped his nonsensical thinking, and his figure paused. Everyone instantly became nervous. Without any words, everyone spread out and silently advanced forwards. 2 people were hiding in a tree. I want to see how long these people from Little Mountain Jia can be happy for, one of the people said furiously. Daylight will be the time of their execution. The other person said greedily, supposedly, they are swimming in wealth. I wonder if we can get 1 or 2 items. Please, we're just assigned to watch the wind, what hopes do we have of getting anything good? It's already pretty good to get some 3rd grade Jingshi. Hey, the sect is pretty generous this time. 20 pieces of 3rd grade Jingshi, that's enough for us to use for a while. 20 pieces. I wonder how much will remain by the time we get them. The 2 people suddenly felt a cold flash against their necks. Their pupils suddenly expanded but they were not able to make any sound. Several shadows appeared by their corpses. It was Ma Fan and the others. 10th one. Nian Lu said lightly. The other side really had sent out a great number of scouts around 100 Flower Valley. In this little while, they had gotten rid of 10 scouts. It was smooth sailing for these people of Sky Peak platoon that comprehended sword essence to do ambushes. Ma Fan carefully stripped the 2 people clean. Seeing there was nothing suspicious, he raised his head. We need to be quick. It is almost 1 o'clock. Everyone had hurried expressions. Almost 1 o'clock. Ma Fan led everyone to quickly leave and search for the next target. They were silently but rapidly advancing along a path that was very out of the way. Along the way, they occasionally got rid of some scouts. But this road was really far out of the way, and they did not encounter too many scouts. When they came out of a mountain valley, they could see Brightwater City and its lights. Brightwater River was serene and silent in the night. Ma Fan released a breath. It was not yet 1 o'clock. He nodded at Lei Peng and Nian Lu behind him. The 2 understood and quickly disappeared into the night. The remaining people were divided into several groups that disappeared behind the 2 people. Ma Fan looked at the 3 people remaining beside him and said lightly, everyone, rest for a while. Finishing, he crossed his legs and sat. The other 3 did not waste words and also meditated. In a deep valley that was once the area that 100 Flower Alliance kept its flower slaves. The location was very out of the way and hidden. Zhuo had already looted the entire mountain valley, and left nothing behind. This empty mountain valley was filled with seated people at this moment. Zhong Ru said in a light voice next to Gongsun Cha's ear. Darren, it's 1. The smile on Gongsun Cha's face grew with a bashfulness that could not be hidden. He opened his eyes that flashed with a pressuring sharpness. Depart. A troop silently advanced along a narrow mountain valley. It was possible to see figures flashing along the 2 sides of the mountain valley. The troop did not slow down at all. Everyone knew that those were the members of Sky Peak platoon. They had swept this path clean. Guarding at the mouth of the valley, Ma Fan suddenly opened his eyes, and saw a shadowy troop. His heart finally landed. They had not failed the mission that Lil Miss had given them. The troop silently streamed and flew out of the valley. The dense woods outside the mountain valley gave them the best concealment. When Gongsun Cha walked out of the mountain valley, he suddenly stopped in his steps and turned to look at the highest mountain peak. He couldn't help but lightly laugh. Shixiang, enjoy getting blown on by the wind. After watching as the troop disappeared in the night, Ma Fan moved away his eyes and said contentedly, let's go back. Woodsword Sect. Master, let this disciple be first tomorrow, a shoujo with handsome features couldn't help but say. He was Yen Yang's beloved disciple, Gao Xiu, and in charge of Woodsword Camp. Yen Yang looked with benevolent affection at Gao Xiu. He had put great effort onto Gao Xiu. Gao Xiu had not failed his expectations to be in charge of Woodsword Camp before he was 25. What many people did not know was that Gao Xiu had just received the White-Silver Battle General Jade Medal. To be able to become a White-Silver Battle General at 25, this talent was enough to dominate all of Sky Water Jia and no one could rival him. He could understand his disciples' desire for battle. Just having received the white-silver battle general jade medal, he desired to use real combat to train himself. Don't worry, you can't even avoid the fight if you wanted to tomorrow, Yan Yang said with a smile. Then his expression became serious. But you have to be careful. There are 2 troops under the command of the Master of Golden Crow City. To be able to kill their way out of Little Mountain Jia, they naturally are very strong. You are familiar with Rong Wei. That little girl's eyes aren't bad. If she thinks they are elite, then they are definitely elite. This disciple will definitely fight with everything, and not fail the reputation of our sect. Gao Xiu said. Yan Yang shook his head. You are wrong. My demand of you is not to make great achievements, but to make no mistakes. Gao Xiu raised his head in shock. Then why did I make the wager with He Chiu when I know the other is an elite force? Yang said meaningfully. Wood Sword Camp is like a sword, and it needs to be sharpened before it can show its power. This Master of Golden Crow City is the whetstone. But we need to be careful or we may break against it. You need to be especially careful of your safety. As long as you are here, Wood Sword Camp is here, and you will not want for opportunities. Gao Xiu was moved, and he respectfully bowed. This disciple understands. Yan Yang suddenly asked, what is the situation at 100 Flower Valley? Gao Xiu hurriedly said, the little mountain Jia Xiuzha of this area have almost all gathered at 100 Flower Valley. There are also many little mountain Jia Xiuzha that are heading over from all places. The Master of Golden Crow City really has skill to have such a high reputation among this group of people. Yan Yang praised, if we give him the time, he may become a warlord. Right, where is he now? Keep track of his movements. He is on the main peak of 100 Flower Valley. Our people have been keeping an eye on him from afar. Gao Xiu said with a smile, supposedly, he has been standing in the wind. He must be having a headache over tomorrow's battle. A strong dragon cannot suppress the local snakehead, you have to securely remember this, and not do as the Master of Golden Crow City is doing. This disciple understands. Zuo stood at the top of the mountain as the cold wind blew. He couldn't help but swear, what stupid plan needs Ji to stand up here in the wind for the whole night? If this keeps on going, Ji will go crazy in the wind. A Gui silently sat next to him. Other than when he fought, wherever Zuo went, she would follow him like a puppet. Lil Black was snoozing on a Gui's head. Lil Fire and Lil Pagoda were full of energy as they rolled around on her body happily. Silly Bird was silently standing next to a Gui. When she heard Zuo's words, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. Somewhat bored, Zuo reached out to Lil Fire. Lil Fire, come over. Hearing this, Lil Fire instantly joyfully flew in front of Zuo. Zuo grabbed Lil Fire. It was very soft, and nice to grasp. Both of his hands were grasping Lil Fire as he put Lil Fire in front of his eyes in curiosity. He tightened and loosened his grip. Why aren't you sprouting fire? Lil Pagoda, who had also wanted to join in, saw the situation and instantly shrank back. The pitiful Lil Fire was needed in Zuo's hands until it sprouted a small flame. However, it never could have thought Zuo was even more motivated, and needed even more happily. So interesting. Very interesting. Lil Fire became a bag that could sprout fire. With a squeeze, it would sprout a thread of fire. Lil Fire chirped sorrowfully, but no matter how it struggled, it could not escape these demonic hands, and could only sprout fire in humiliation. Lil Pagoda ran to a Gui's head, and watched sympathetically with Lil Black at Lil Fire. Zuo's hands suddenly felt pain and uncontrollably relaxed. Lil Fire took the chance and broke free of the demonic hands. Zuo turned his face. What welcomed him was Silly Bird's gaze filled with scorn. Just now, it had been her that pecked Zuo's hand. He looked dazedly at Silly Bird and was astounded. That peck was so strong. He had the great Daimo physique, but he couldn't keep his grip under the peck. He looked with disbelief at Silly Bird, but the scene that followed shocked him even more. Chapter 321, Ambush. Silly Bird suddenly turned her head around, and her bird eyes stared at the thick cloud cover far in the sky. It was the first time Zhuemo had seen Silly Bird have such a vicious gaze, as though she had seen something she extremely disliked. Just as Zhuemo was puzzled, Silly Bird suddenly gave a long call, her wings spreading, and then she disappeared. Zhuemo only saw a shadow fly by. When he managed to react, he saw a shocking scene. Silly Bird was like a bolt of gray lightning that entered the thick black clouds. What was this bird doing? Zhuemo dazedly looked at the clouds, his mind unable to react. Just as he prepared to go and take a look, a shadow flew close and appeared in front of him. It was Silly Bird. There were traces of blood on Silly Bird's long beak. Her gaze was vicious as she puffed her head and chest high, her body wrapped in killing intent. She called out a clear long note that rang into the distance. A shadow suddenly dropped out of the clouds. Zhuemo saw it clearly. It was a black bat. The stomach of this black bat had been eviscerated, exposing the innards, and it clearly wouldn't live. Black bats were third-grade ling beasts. Their ears were extremely keen and they were mostly used for information gathering. However, it was not easy to raise a black bat. They were very expensive. Normal scouts couldn't afford them. Master of Golden Crow City. You dare to kill my black bat, tomorrow, I will make you die. A male's shout came far out in the distance inside the clouds. Zhuemo ignored it. His eyes were tightly locked onto Silly Bird. The viciousness in Silly Bird's eyes quickly retreated, and she quickly became as proud and aloof as she usually was. If it wasn't for the traces of blood still on Silly Bird's beak, Zhuemo definitely would have thought what just happened was his delusion. He huddled in front of Silly Bird. Oh, you look very normal. Silly Bird rolled her eyes and ignored him. She raised her bird head up high, strutted her bird walk, and left. When did this bird get so vicious? Zhuemo rubbed his chin as he said to himself. He wanted to chase, but when he looked at the surroundings and remembered that he still had the mission of keeping the other side's spies occupied, he could only stand on the mountain to be blown by the wind. He shook his head, and decided to ignore the bird. After she had gone out to show off last time, she hadn't been very normal. Ague, do you think we can win? Ague was sitting woodenly. Zhuemo did not care and sat down next to Ague. Looking out at the dark black sky, he became unfocused. He didn't notice an extremely faint, almost imperceptible purple light flash suddenly through Ague's empty eyes. Brightwater City was surrounded by a large river. This large river was Brightwater River, and it was the origin of Brightwater City's name. In the dark, Brightwater River was so quiet it seemed to be sleeping. There weren't any waves. Suddenly, the water's surface started to ripple and a figure slowly rose out of the river water. This person looked around for a while, saw no one was around, and took out a little black umbrella. The little umbrella flew out of his hand and turned to an intangible black silk that floated onto the sky above the river. A moment later, figures rose up from the river water. In the span of a few breaths, the surface of the river was filled with people. These people silently floated into the sky above the river. This black ling hiding umbrella really lives up to being a fourth-grade talisman. Wei Ran lifted his head to look at the black silk that was floating in the sky. This ethereal black silk covered all of them. They couldn't be seen from the outside. This black ling hiding umbrella was one of the fourth-grade talismans from Boss Spoils. It could hide people, and more importantly, it could stop ling energy ripples from spreading into the surrounding area. Even as he praised, he took out Jingshi and started to recover his ling power. No one spoke. Everyone silently recovered their ling power. Gongsun Cha didn't need to recover ling power. He examined the nearby Brightwater City, and his lips curved. The powers of Brightwater City clearly didn't think highly of them. Brightwater City almost had no defenses at all. The black ling-hiding umbrella was a powerful talisman, but there were many formations and talismans that could detect it. But they hadn't encountered even one of them. The loose defense was full of holes in Gong Sun Cha's eyes. He thought it was a pity that they were not here to attack the city. 1 hour later, everyone finished their recovery. The black ling-hiding umbrella was put away. It could not be moved when it was activated. That was its only flaw. Vermilion Bird Camp flew 20 zhang into the sky. Gong Sun Cha sat on the broad green cloud sword. Gazing down at bright water city, the corners of his mouth moved up. A cold light flashed through his eyes as he said lightly, "Start." Hiss. Vermilion Bird Camp suddenly moved. The lanterns on the streets gave off a warm yet bright light. Tonight's bright water city was excited yet frantic. Large amounts of shouja had gathered in bright water city. They were waiting for dawn. The actions taken this time were the most significant ones in bright water city's recent history. Everyone was full of excitement and anticipation. Wood Sword Camp and Flying Cloud Camp had already reached Brightwater City and made camp. The other sects were urgently gathering combat shouja in order to attend this great banquet. The tea houses and bars were filled with people. People even filled the streets. The passerby on the streets suddenly heard a strange sound. They stilled, and couldn't resist raising their heads. Large numbers of figures flashed through the sky, and caused endless howls. Hiss, everyone without exception inhaled sharply. This troop's presence was shocking and were definitely an elite force. Many people started to speculate which sect's elite force had arrived. This grand banquet had attracted the gaze of countless sections. The shouja flashed rapidly through the sky. Before they could react, the people had disappeared. So strong, I don't know which sect had sent them. This really is a great force. Hee, tomorrow is going to be a spectacle. Everyone became more excited as they chatted. Gao Xiu came from the sect leader's place and returned to the vast Sun Hall. The Wood Sword Camp shouja he encountered along the way bowed to him. Everyone could not disguise the excitement on their faces. They had hurried to Brightwater City in the afternoon and camped in vast Sun Hall. Gao Xiu's vice commander and a group of shouja came over. Darren, what did sect leader say? We're up first tomorrow. Gao Xiu said with a smile, excitement flashing through his eyes. Great. Haha, we'll let the people from Flying Cloud Camp to see how strong we are. The shouja of Wood Sword Camp cheered excitedly. They were the best disciples of Wood Sword sect. Hadn't they trained for decades just for this day? Gao Xiu suddenly furrowed his brows. He could hear trembling vibrations coming close to them. He knew what it was. That was the sound produced when a large troop flew by. The other shouja were also alerted to the sound. Which bastard dares to fly above our heads, someone couldn't help swearing. Camps like Wood Sword Camp were very wary of people flying over their heads, and all the sects would try to avoid flying over other camps. This was an unwritten rule. Has Flying Wind Camp come to Brightwater City? Gao Xiu suddenly asked. They arrived 4 hours ago, his subordinate answered. Gao Xiu's expression suddenly changed as he shouted, enemy attack. The black patch of shouja appeared with astonishing speed in everyone's vision. Boom! Countless sword energies rained down like a storm. The black night was suddenly lit up by countless grand sword energies. The entire vast Sun Hall was completely covered by the other side's sword energies. The shouja around Gao Xiu all paled, but they were well trained and activated their Ling shields to protect Gao Xiu. Some other Wood Sword Camp shouja gritted their teeth and shouted, kill. Hundreds of figures flew up against the rain of sword energies. Pew pew pew. The Ling shield of a Wood Sword shouja cracked. He wasn't able to make any response before dozens of sword energies pierced his body. Dozens of blood blossoms formed. Under the rain of sword energies, the sprays of blood were like explosions on these Wood Sword Camp shouja. The grand vast Sun Hall was instantly destroyed by the sword energy rain and was left riddled with holes. You dare! An angry shout suddenly sounded like lightning. Right after, a middle-aged shoujo holding an almond-yellow little flag waved out layers of yellow light. When the dense sword energy rain hit these yellow light curtains, they were only able to make ripples. The morale of the wood sword camp shoujo increased. "Ha, Jindan," Lil Miss lightly breathed. Just as the middle-aged shoujo appeared, Wei Ran had locked onto the other. What he hadn't expected was the other had moved faster than he did. He snorted coldly, and took his division's shoujo to fly out in an arc into the sky. Then turned and started to dive. Their speed suddenly increased, a piercing sound roared in the air. Even among the sounds of battle, the howling that caused people's scalp to prickle, Wei Ran raised the flying sword in his hand. The shoujo behind him all raised their flying swords. 100 kill. Wei Ran suddenly bellowed, the flying sword in his hand heavily striking down. 100 kill. The second division behind him all shouted, their flying swords striking down. A terrifying sword energy more than 20 zhang long destructively tore through the air as it descended from the sky and landed heavily against the yellow light curtain. Ping! The yellow light curtain suddenly splintered and only half of the enormous sword energy was left. A thread of blood came from the corner of the middle-aged person's mouth. Viciousness flashed through his eyes. He raised his head and saw the half-section of sword energy coming towards him. He said, "Good attack." He pointed with the almond-yellow flag. A blinding yellow light collided directly with the remaining section of sword energy. Boom! Wei Ran only saw a patch of whiteness and was not able to see anything. He gritted his teeth, gathered his last bit of Ling power, and threw what was in his hand down hard. Just as the item in his hand left, a large force passed over him. He couldn't control his body, and was thrown into the air. Up in the sky, almost lacking all energy, he gave a smile, "Idiot." Boom! Even more powerful explosions came from below. Sonic lightning walnuts. He had just thrown down a sonic lightning walnut. The 12 division leaders had all been given a sonic lightning walnut by boss. Before the 100 kill attack, he had already prepared the sonic lightning walnut. Relying on just 100 kill wasn't enough to kill a Jindan, but after 100 kill, even a Jindan couldn't escape the sonic lightning walnut. Boom! A rapid series of sonic lightning explosions came from below. At this time, all of the division leaders had bombed down the sonic lightning walnuts that they had held. Before they could clearly see what the explosions did, a voice came from beside their ear, "Retreat." Chapter 322, Victory. On the mountaintop, Zuemo saw the blinding light appearing above Bright Water City and suddenly jumped up from the ground as he roared with laughter, "Yes!" Immediately after, blinding sword energies lit up the sky like a meteor shower that flew towards 100 Flower Valley. At this time, Vermilion Bird Camp no longer needed to conceal themselves. The people that had Ling power remaining all channeled their Ling power to draw out blinding lights. The shoujo of Bright Water City all finally reacted. Sword Shio continuously flew into the sky, and chased after the blinding lights. Soon, a grand scene appeared in the sky. Following after thousands of sword energies were an even greater number of sword energies. Almost all the sword Shio of Bright Water City had come out. The most eye-catching was Flying Cloud Camp that flew at the very front. Flying Cloud Camp were well-trained and responded the quickest. After the 12 sonic lightning walnuts exploded together, they had also been affected by the power. Hu Shan's eyes could spit fire. He had never thought the master of Golden Crow City would be so insane and daring to this level. He didn't bother looking down at Brightwater City. After such a terrifying explosion, there wouldn't be anyone left alive at the campsite of Woodsword Camp. Before this night, he had never thought that Woodsword Camp would be destroyed in a single night, and be destroyed so completely. The relationship between Flying Cloud Camp and Woodsword Camp couldn't be called harmonious, but... He gritted his teeth. He felt there was a burst of fire inside his chest that wanted to get out. This group of bastards. The distance between the Vermilion Bird Camp and Flying Cloud Camp remained steady as the chase continued, neither side gaining on the other. Flying Cloud Camp had reacted the quickest, and so they tightly followed behind the other. Vermilion Bird Camp had made great expenditures in the ambush just now, and was at their weakest. If they could catch up, Flying Cloud Camp would definitely have the advantage. In the night, the two sides did not have any care, and let all of their Ling power go. One in front and one in the back, they were like two waves of meteorites that flew with astounding speed flying along the bottom of a thick cloud layer. Hu Shan glared with wide eyes. The speed of the other side was beyond their expectations. They had to use all their Ling power and they were just able to keep up. Before, Hu Shan had heard that the master of Golden Crow City that had two elite forces. Looking at it now, they really were elite. Flying Cloud Camp was famous for its speed, and Hu Shan was shocked that the other was even faster than they were. Wait a moment. The master of Golden Crow City had two elite forces. Hu Shan's heart suddenly sank. His limbs felt cold as his face paled. Two elite forces, where was the other elite force? Not good. At this moment, a deep voice sounded out from the cloud layer. Kill! Thousands of people shouted together, kill! Hu Shan felt his vision blur. Countless black snakes suddenly burrowed out of the cloud layer and rushed towards them. Their speed had been raised to the maximum. They didn't even have the time to think, much less dodge, before these black snakes had reached them. Hu Shan could clearly see the fangs of the black snakes. He watched as the black snake penetrated his body. Disbelief and shock remained in Hu Shan's wide eyes. He almost couldn't believe he would die so easily. The moment the black snake entered his body, he felt his body become cold as something icy passed through his body. The channels in his body were destroyed, and he lost control of his body. His body flipped as it fell through the air, and crashed heavily on the ground. Pia pia pia. The sounds of impact were like raindrops that did not end. Each of the black snakes penetrated a body and came out the back, its features twisted. With the remainder of its power, it usually would penetrate between 3 to 5 people. This change happened in a flash, so quick that people were basically unable to react. Flying Cloud Camp instantly descended into chaos. They seemed to have been heavily swatted. The troop was scattered by the charge of black energy, and were left with heavy casualties and injuries. Due to the speed they were traveling at, the distance between the Shouja in the front and back of the troop was too small. Once the front lines had turned to chaos, the Shouja at the back didn't have the time to respond and they collided together. The sound of bones cracking, and flesh tearing, as well as grunts and wails appeared simultaneously in this short moment. The battle immediately reached its climax, its grandest moment, the time of death. Like a meteor shower, the beautiful sword energies seemed to have been extinguished by this black wind, only leaving behind a few that fled in terror. Sneak attack, baiting, ambush, one tactic after the other. In one night, the two most famous elite forces of Bright Water City were almost completely destroyed. At this time, Shu Long showed his rich battle experience. He did not choose to use the successive MO kill which was more powerful, but used the weaker, and more easily controlled little MO kill. The more powerful the Shoujo were, the more vicious and cruel the battles between them were, especially large-scale battles like this one. An enormous slave transporting boat emerged from the clouds and appeared in everyone's view. The high-speed pursuit had caused the distance between Flying Cloud Camp and the other Bright Water City Shouja to increase. Leaving, Shu Long able to leisurely retreat towards 100 Flower Valley. The Bright Water City Shouja that managed to arrive could only watch the slave-transporting boat enter the shadows of 100 Flower Valley. No one dared to give chase. Many of them did not understand what was going on. They didn't know what had happened in Bright Water City, but the destruction of Flying Cloud Camp had happened in front of their eyes. Just now, the famed Flying Cloud Camp had almost been completely annihilated. They had personally seen the entire process. The ease that the master of Golden Crow City had accomplished this made them feel a bone-aching chill. Terror gripped their hearts like the night. The sky was almost completely filled with shouja from Brightwater City, but no one dared to move closer. The entire sky was unusually quiet with a deathly silence. This is a good chance to charge and kill. The first words that Gongsun Cha said to Zhou Mo when he got off the green cloud sword was this. Zhou Mo understood what Gongsun Cha meant. The other side's morale had reached the bottom. If he took the shouja of Little Mountain Jia and charged out right now, not even half of the shouja in the air right now would remain. But he shook his head and said, "This is enough." His eyes looked at the camp inside the valley that seemed to be boiling, and began wandering off in thought. Just as he finished saying this, many people flew from the camp onto the mountaintop. "City Master. Let's attack. They are afraid." "Yes. It is a great chance." Everyone spoke over each other as they urged Zhou Mo to act. They were the leaders of the various factions. Zhou Mo smiled, and a rare expression of solemnity came onto his face. "Everyone." Once he spoke, the noisy crowd instantly quieted. "First, there is something that needs to be told to everyone." Zhou Mo looked at the surroundings and said, "After this matter is over, we will be leaving Skywater Jie." These people were all heads, and were smart people. Some were puzzled, some were dazed, but they all had thoughtful expressions. But the great majority of everyone will be remaining here. Those people, Zhou Mo pointed at the shouja in the sky, are mostly normal shouja. If they are killed, we can dust off our asses, and leave, no problem. But what about you? How will you establish yourselves in Skywater Jie? It isn't too great of a problem to offend Cloud Divine's sect and Woodsword sect, but if you offend all of Skywater Jie, there will be no place for you in Skywater Jie. Everyone has come here to seek a chance at survival. No one wants to have come out of Little Mountain Jia and still fight every day. Zhou Mo's words caused everyone to be speechless. This one will remember and accept everyone's goodwill, and is very grateful. This 100-flower valley and this victory is gifted to everyone. After today, there will be more shouja that have rushed here. Why don't you build a city here? If everyone is able to work together, with the precedent of Woodsword Camp and Flying Cloud Camp, no one would dare to make trouble. This way, everyone can have safe and secure days. In the dark, Zhou Mo's smile was like sunlight, his eyes black and bright as they attracted everyone's gaze. After the dark of the night came the light of dawn. Many Little Mountain Jia shouja came from all directions to Brightwater City, but before they could hurry to Brightwater City, the news of the Master of Golden Crow City's great victory and the destruction of the Woodsword and Flying Cloud camps seemed to grow wings and spread throughout all of Skywater Jia. The entire Jia was shocked. Just as the large factions of Skywater Jia speculated on the future, the news that a city was being built in 100-Flower Valley spread through Skywater Jia. The new city was called Little Mountain City. Every Little Mountain Jia shouja that was hurrying towards Brightwater City was re-energized and traveled day and night to fly towards 100-Flower Valley. In a short few days, almost half of all the Little Mountain Jia shouja had gathered in 100-Flower Valley. All of the major factions in Skywater Jia were attentively watching the movements of 100-Flower Valley. They had originally assumed that Woodsword sect and Cloud Divine sect would use their entire sect to exact vengeance, but unexpectedly, both sects maintained their silence and did not act. By this time, almost 8/10 of Little Mountain Jia shouja had gathered in 100-Flower Valley, and it was very busy. The Master of Golden Crow City, who was the subject of great hope, had closed his doors to guests and cultivated every day. "You aren't going to help them?" Gongsun Cha asked. "This isn't something we should be involved in." Zhou Mo shook his head, and then muttered, "Gu feels burdened with just the amount of people there already is. If there is any more people, Ji will find a tree and hang himself." "Oh, that's right." Lil Miss nodded his head, and smacked his lips. He said regretfully, "We didn't gain much from this battle. A little unprofitable." These words poked Zhou Mo's wound. He couldn't help but have an expression of heartache. They had invested greatly in this big victory. Just the dozen sonic lightning walnuts were an astounding expense, but there were no spoils. It was the first time they had a battle with just expenses and no gains. It will count as thanks to them, Zuemo comforted himself, but the heartache in his words didn't lessen. Feeling the strong effect this topic had on him, Zuemo decided to change the topic. He turned and asked Shu Long, "How is Owen? Is he adjusting well? What about those flower slaves?" Shu Long respectfully said, "Owen's injuries should completely heal in about a fortnight. The flower slaves are much better after cultivating the spell that Darren taught them, but their situation will take some time until it can be clearly determined." "That's good." Zuemo felt his mood was much better. Who said it? Doing good deeds made one feel better. Even though it did not feel as good as Jingshi, but Zuemo's mood became much lighter. The clouds suddenly started to gather in the sky above 100 Flower Valley. In less than 10 breaths, there were dark clouds. The sky turned dark, and a pressuring mood filled all of 100 Flower Valley. Zuemo suddenly stood up, his face full of shock. "It's Xie Shan." Chapter 323, Core Formation. The entire 100 Flower Valley started to move. Core formation. Someone was having their core formation. Compared to entering the Zhuji and Ningmai stages, forming the core made a much bigger spectacle. The sky had just been full of light, but now it was covered in dark clouds. It was possible to see lightning snakes among the clouds, and 5-colored auroras flowing by. Many people couldn't help but have admiring expressions. Everyone caused different apparitions when they were forming their core. The exact nature of the apparition was related to the Shouja's own spells, and the laws that they comprehended. The changes of the world during core formation was extremely important to a Shouja because it was the first step for a Shouja to comprehend the higher levels of the world's rules. Higher-leveled rules, and deeper comprehension began with the apparition during core formation. Stepping into this door was a brand new world. This was core formation. The core formation that countless people dreamed about. Every Shouja that entered Ningmai had a dream, core formation. For the great majority of Shouja, Jindan was the highest target they perused. It meant greater power, higher status, more Jingshi, and a freer life. In places like Sky Moon Jia and Sky Water Jia, a Jindan was a warlord, and if they didn't want to waste time on mortal matters, any sect would welcome them with the status of an elder. The tempting benefits meant you did not have to worry about materials, or Jingshi. You had great amounts of time to do anything you wanted. To get all these benefits, you only needed to become a Jindan. The black clouds in the sky roiled. The 5-colored aurora would occasionally become rainbows that then extinguished. It was very attractive. The mood became even tenser. Zuemo's mouth was open wide as he looked dazedly at the sky. This was the first time he saw the process of core formation, and it gave him an enormous shock. The black clouds in the sky, the rainbows that were born and died, all of this shocked him. His consciousness was very strong, and his sensitivity to Ling power surpassed any Shouja inside the valley. He could clearly feel the terrifying Ling power that was contained here. The Ling power within a 300 li radius had suddenly concentrated the moment the black clouds formed. The Ling power had all flowed into this ball of black clouds. If these black clouds exploded, the power it would release would far surpass the power of 12 sonic lightning walnut exploding simultaneously. The entire 100 Flower Valley would turn to dust. Even Zuemo, with his great Daimo physique, would not be able to avoid this calamity. The pressure that was released by the black clouds was purely caused by the sheer enormous volume of Ling power it contained. Zuemo's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. He noticed many Shouja didn't retreat, but went closer. Core formation was a rare event and had a fatal attraction for everyone. If they could see a bit, it definitely would be of benefit. This group of people didn't want to live. Zuemo swore inside and stopped the people going forward. "It is dangerous. Come back. Everyone, retreat out of 100 Flower Valley." Fortunately, Zuemo held great authority among this group of people. Everyone hesitated, but they all quickly left Hundred Flower Valley. Hundred Flower Valley was very close to Brightwater City. Such a strong flow of Ling power had disturbed all of Brightwater City. Shouja from Brightwater City continually flew out of Brightwater City to look in the direction of Hundred Flower Valley. After that night's battle, the Shouja of Brightwater City changed their attitudes towards the Little Mountain Jia Shouja who were led by the Master of Golden Crow City, especially Jindan Shouja. The ambush during the night had completely destroyed Wood Sword Camp, including one Jindan. Up until now, there were 5 or 6 Jindan that had died in the hands of the Master of Golden Crow City. This was a number that no one could dismiss. If it was 1 or 2, it could be said to be luck, but 5 or 6 was not something that could be explained by luck. This was why the heavily wounded Wood Sword Sect and Cloud Divine Sect did not launch a counterattack. In the eyes of normal Shouja, the power of the Master of Golden Crow City was immeasurable. They also found that the construction of Little Mountain City did not affect their lives. These Shouja that came from Little Mountain Jia were not as brutal and evil as they had originally imagined. They were very generous and were deeply liked by merchants. Many merchants planned on going to Little Mountain City and open up a store. Core formation, they have someone becoming a Jindan. In the sky, Yan Yang's expression was dark. A malicious look flashed through his eyes. He Qiu was silently for a moment before he said, "Yes, they have become even stronger." When the figures of Vermilion Bird Camp appeared in the sky, He Qiu sighed. The name of Vermilion Bird Camp had spread through Sky Water Jie. Everyone knew of them. The appearance of this troop meant that the Master of Golden Crow City was still wary of them. Yan Yang did not make a sound. He stared viciously at Vermilion Bird Camp that was swimming through the air. It was this troop that had sent Wood Sword Camp to their deaths, and had taken the life of his beloved disciple. He definitely would avenge this grievance. His gaze was dark. The elders of the sect did not agree to allow him using stronger measures. No elder was willing to fight. This was why he had remained inactive up until now. He did his best to control the hatred in his heart. He was very clear that only an unconventional move could help him avenge this grievance. In the entire Sky Water Jia, no sect would publicly stand with him and become enemies with the Master of Golden Crow City. Yan Yang did his best to suppress it, but how could he conceal it from the eyes of He Qiu, who had been his opponent for more than 10 years? He Qiu instantly knew Yan Yang's thoughts, but he did not speak of it. If Yan Yang wanted to jump into the fire pit, he wouldn't stop the other. At this time, 5 colored aurora lights suddenly light up the thick cloud layer above Hundred Flower Valley. It was possible to see the shape of a rainbow-colored Ling beast swimming inside. Zhuo Mo's expression was nervous. Xia Shan had reached the most crucial time of a core formation. He could feel Xia Shan was continuously absorbing Ling power from the clouds. That Ling beast that was blurry was very resistant to Xia Shan absorbing Ling power. Xia Shan didn't seem to be in a hurry, and just continuously drew out Ling power. 2 hours passed. Xia Shan was still absorbing Ling power. Zhuo Mo was filled with shock. Up until now, he could generally estimate how much Ling power Xia Shan had drawn out from the clouds. Jindan Shouja were definitely monsters. The amount of Ling power in a Ningmai could not compare to what a Jindan could contain. No wonder people commonly say that Jindan and Ningmai were 2 different worlds. Pu Yao appeared out of nowhere. You don't have to be jealous of him. He has a deep base, which is why he has caused such an apparition while he is forming the golden core. If you grasp all 6 transformations of the Great Daimo physique, other than some rare powerful Jindan, no other Jindan will be a match for you. Really? Zhuo Mo didn't quite believe it. Before today, he hadn't been as fearful of Jindan as he had been in the past, but the powerful apparition of Xia Shan's core formation today had once again shown him the power of Jindan Shouja. To be ranked second among Brigadier Mo physiques, how could it not have any powerful qualities? Pu Yao smirked coldly. His direction changed. Even if you do not use the Great Daimo physique, you still don't have to be afraid of him. How so? Zhuo was slightly interested. After Pu Yao had gotten a Jin Dan last time, he had become much more energized, and was chattier. What surprised Zhuo the most was that this guy was much more generous than he was in the past. He didn't hide things like spells and Yao arts like he had before. If you cultivate great thousand-leaf hands, and little thousand-leaf hands, even a Jin Dan isn't a threat. Pu Yao said proudly. Please, Zhuo smirked scornfully, who are you trying to fool? I've practiced these too, the power isn't bad, but it isn't enough to take down a Jin Dan. How much have you cultivated? Pu Yao volleyed back with the same scornful tone. It is a waste for them to have landed on your hands. Your brain isn't very good. Just cultivate great Damo physique. That is most suited to people with able limbs and simple minds. He then glanced disdainfully at Zhuo. Our Yao cultivation has much more to consider than the dumb Mo. Zhuo was not willing to show weakness. He said with a cold smile, really? But why haven't I ever seen it from this honored Sky Yao? Pu Yao had a deep hint of mirth at the corner of his mouth. No problem, I can let you see. Zhuo's pupils suddenly shrank. A black dot suddenly appeared in front of Pu Yao, a black dot that was bottomless. When the black dot appeared, it expanded and swallowed the surrounding space at a rapid speed. Zhuo could only stare as the surroundings were being swallowed. His body could not move. In the black void, Zhuo faced Pu Yao. What Yao art is this? Zhuo gaped as he stammered. He looked in all directions. Everything was a black void. Pu Yao lowered his head slightly, his blood-red pupil narrowing into a line, and the thin lips slightly curved. Night restriction, a very obscure Yao art. Finishing, he gave a strange smile. You are nervous? Cough. Hearing this, Zhuo pretended to cough. Nonsense. Just a Yao art that is used for scares, and you want to make GE nervous, you underestimate GE. Zhuo then said suspiciously, Pu, you've recovered your power. A little bit. Just a golden core, there wasn't much primary essence. Zhuo sweat when he heard this. Pu Yao's tone made it seem like he was saying a mosquito didn't have much meat. Those were Jin Dan, not lettuce. What do you want to do by bringing me to this dark place? Zhuo's expression was righteous. I'm telling you I have no interest in Yao. In the future, I will find a beautiful female Xiu to marry. I'm very interested in you. Pu Yao stared with interest at Zhuo like he was seeing some peerless treasure. His eye was red and shiny. Zhuo's hair rose at his gaze. That. Pu, Xie Shan is undergoing core formation. I've never seen a core formation. If I miss this chance, it will be hard to encounter one again. Look, there's nothing to see in a core formation. Pu Yao narrowed up his eyes again, and froze Zhuo's heart. Pu Yao didn't seem normal today. Zhuo's heart was beating. An abnormal Pu Yao was much scarier than any Jin Dan. It was out of my expectations that you could cultivate to great Damo physique. Pu Yao glanced at Zhuo and said lightly, the great Damo physique is unyielding and powerful. I've only seen one Mo successfully reach it. 10 years later, I discovered he died. Died? How did he die? Zhuo instinctively asked. They failed and died during advancement. If Xiuzhe fail during advancement, they fail, and they themselves are not damaged. But the progression of a Mo physique is very dangerous. If it fails, then their soul is destroyed. Pu Yao's words were like the sharp cold wind of the winter, making Zhuo's face turn pale white. Chapter 324, 10-Finger Prison. Pu Yao's words made Zhuo's heart beat rapidly, but he quickly calmed down. After he had experienced so much, his mind was much stronger than before. Having dealt with Pu Yao for so long, it was clear that Pu Yao said all this for a reason. Pu Yao saw that Zhuo didn't speak, and was not surprised. He said, Xiu spells, Mo skills, Yao arts, the differences between these three are not so absolute and opposed as you imagine. When you reach the higher levels, you will encounter things you cannot imagine now, like a Mo general suddenly attacking with a sword scripture move, or a shouja casting a Yao art. Everyone has different paths, but they all lead back to the same destination. Oh, this is just idle talk, this has nothing to do with you. Pu Yao's blood pupil flashed with a bloody light like a red and glittering ruby. He stared at Zhuo Mo, and had an interested expression as he said amusedly, "What I want to say to you is that I am planning on doing a little experiment." Zhuo Mo suddenly had a bad feeling. What experiment? Hey, Pu Yao, I'm telling you, don't do, he. Pu Yao's blade-like lips slightly curved. His hands spread out like wings, the 10 fingers seemed to be pressed against water and creating 10 dots of intangible ripples. 10-finger prison, that is a place any Yao with ambition will go to. The 10 ripples spread, and the space surrounding Zhuo Mo started to waver. When he opened his eyes again, he was dumbstruck where he stood. Above his head, a river slowly flowed. It was not supported by anything. Zhuo Mo could clearly see a rainbow and vivid schools of fish swimming in the river and the threads of black and green water grasses. Below his feet was a piece of rock about 10 zhang in radius that was floating in the air. In front of him rocks, large and small, floated without end. The river curved and flowed between these floating pieces of rock. Some rocks had flowers and grasses growing vibrantly on them. Zhuo Mo's mouth was wide open. Looking at this scene that far surpassed his imagination, he was flabbergasted. Oh, this place changed a lot. Pu Yao's mood seemed to be pretty good as he looked around. After a while, Zhuo Mo recovered. He carefully walked to the edge of the rock and looked down. What was below was a blurry space that nothing could be made out. Below is the endless void. Don't fall down. Pu Yao smiled freely, if you fall down, I can't save you. Zhuo Mo's body froze as he carefully shrank back to the center of the rock. He suddenly turned to stare hard at Pu Yao and gritted through his teeth, "You perverse Ren Yao. Send Ji back." He. Pu Yao was not angry. Relax. Right now, you're just a thread of primary soul that has been pulled into the 10-finger prison, it's not like your real body came. Zhuo Mo was slightly reassured, but Pu Yao's next words caused the anger in his heart to erupt. Oh, but if this thread of your soul can't return, it isn't any different than death. Pu, what do you really want to do? Zhuo Mo bit each word out as he asked. It is such a familiar smell. Pu Yao smelled the air of the 10-finger prison and showed an intoxicated expression. A moment later, he opened his eyes. The great Mo physique is unyielding and peerlessly powerful, you know this. But you definitely don't know that compared to the strength of the fleshly body, what the great Mo physique requires most is the strength of the inner heart, the strength of the soul, that is the crux to advancement. This place cannot exercise your body, but it can exercise your heart and soul. Welcome to the first finger prison of the 10-finger prison, vast water clear skies. Pu Yao bowed his body slightly, and made a very elegant gesture. Zhuo Mo quickly composed himself, and started to patiently listen to Pu Yao's introduction. The more he heard, the more reassured he was. There was a time limit to the 10-finger prison. With the strength of Zhuo Mo's consciousness, he could only stay a maximum of 4 hours in here each time. Even Pu Yao had no way to change this. Just 4 hours. The shadow over Zhuo Mo's heart instantly dissipated greatly. 10-finger prison is also called the Yao training prison. Any Yao that has a little bit of accomplishment would basically have come here. The Yao art houses will even form teams and have events to increase the combat abilities of their students. Oh, you Xiuzha have similar places. Like Wukong Sword Sect's Sword Cave, but that place is very small in comparison. Large sects like Kunlun have their own training grounds. They are very big, about 10 jiao or so. We Yao aren't so extravagant. Oh, we're so poor there's no other way. Zhuo Mo found that as Pu Yao entered the 10-finger prison, his words became more abundant, and was almost chatty. However, this matched his wishes. He could get some information from this guy's mouth. Then won't I encounter Yao here? Zhuo said doubtfully. He then became slightly excited. In any case, it was just 4 hours. Thinking that way, this trip to the 10-finger prison was more like a vacation. Right, Pu Yao then twisted his mouth, but this is the first finger prison, they will all just be beginners. Oh. If they all like coming here, then this place should have some benefits. Zhuo instantly showed his practical side. The 10-finger prison was supposedly created by an ancient great Yao, and includes almost all the Yao arts. Of course, that's just a boast, you can just listen to it. But it does have a lot of Yao arts. For example, the first finger prison, vast water clear skies, it is made from 13,000 low-level Yao arts. I counted when I was young. Pu Yao said with interest. Zhuo looked at Pu Yao like he was looking at a monster. Alright, this joke was slightly bad. You were so idle when you were young. When the admiration in his heart reached his mouth, it became scorn. From this, it was possible to see that Zhuo was still angry over Pu Yao pulling him into the 10-finger prison for a 4-hour trip. Yes. Pu Yao responded emotionally as though he was thinking of the times in the past. Zhuo's mind shifted. Pu, what were you like when you were young? A person as weak as you cannot understand. Pu Yao's answer instantly smashed the remaining good feeling in Zhuo's heart. He rolled his eyes. So the powerful you came here to count? Counted all the way to 13,000. Ha ha. Pu Yao laughed freely. Zhuo flew among the rocks. He was very careful. Every rock, flower, grass, and drop of water here was related to the Yao arts. Of the 46 pieces of rock Zhuo had passed, every one of them had a different attribute. Pu Yao continuously explained the different Yao arts to him, how to use them, and how to deconstruct them. Zhuo found that Pu Yao actually did have some skill. Pu Yao could confidently talk about every kind of Yao art, explain it effortlessly and was simple to understand. Having already learned the great and little thousand-leaf hands, Zhuo did not have a hard time understanding low-level Yao arts, but deconstructing them still required some effort. What depressed him the most that the 4 hours was spent between these 46 rocks. He had originally assumed that he could see some exotic locations. Zhuo was very disappointed. To leave each rock, it required deconstructing them. Did this guy pull him here to destroy rocks? What heart and soul becoming stronger? Zhuo was very suspicious this was an excuse this guy made up on the spot. He did not doubt this guy would do such a thing. The power of low-level Yao arts were very limited, and far less than the great and little thousand-leaf hands. After learning the 46 Yao arts, there was no actual benefit to his combat abilities. It was just 4 hours, Zhuo could only comfort himself so. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw a shadow flying towards him. His mind became alert, was he going to encounter a Yao? Just as he was filled with admiration, his surroundings rippled like waves and became blurry. Damn it! His vision blurred and Zhuo returned to reality. His expression was very ugly. He didn't leave early or late, but returned at the most interesting moment. This made his 4-hour tour of 10-finger prison turn into a trip to view rocks. Just after Pu Yao and Zhuo disappeared, a figure flashed past the rock the two of them had been on and couldn't help but make a slight sound of surprise. An expression of shock flashed across her face. When her gaze landed on the other pieces of rock, the surprise on her face increased. She seemed to have seen something that was impossible. Zhuo shook his head. His head still felt dizzy. Everything in front of him seemed slightly unreal. Darren, are you alright? Shu Long asked in concern. He was slightly worried. Darren's attention had been unfocused in the past 4 hours. Oh, nothing. Zhuo suppressed the depression in his heart and raised his head to look in the direction of 100 Flower Valley. Has Xie Shan done anything? Nothing. Shu Long shook his head. Just at this time, the black clouds above Hundred Flower Valley started to move forcefully, the five-colored aurora moving in layers, and the outline of the multicolored Ling beast became even clearer. Zhuo Mo became alert. He felt the rate that Xia Shan was absorbing Ling power suddenly increased. It had come. A rainbow light suddenly lit up in the black clouds like hundreds of rainbow needles piercing the eyes of the onlookers. Even Zhuo Mo unconsciously closed his eyes. The rainbow light was visible for hundreds of li. A long howl passed from inside Hundred Flower Valley and rang into the surroundings. When everyone opened their eyes, the black clouds in the sky had completely disappeared. There were no clouds for 10,000 li, and the sky was clear blue. A figure shot from Hundred Flower Valley into the sky. It was Xia Shan. He looked around and then suddenly disappeared in the air. Sighs rose among the crowd. Only Jin Dan could possess such fast speed. Xia Shan's figure seemed to flash and then appear in front of Zhuo Mo out of thin air. At this time, he was like an unsheathed sword with all his edges revealed. The presence of his body continuously smashed against the surroundings. Shu Long's figure waved, and his expression changed to a wary one. Zhuo Mo was like a spear and remained motionless. He was not affected by Xia Shan's presence at all. Darren, Xia Shan is a Jin Dan. Xia Shan respectfully bowed, his presence instantly decreasing. Zhuo Mo was stunned, and then a joyous expression came onto his face. He had originally assumed that Xia Shan would leave after becoming a Jin Dan. In his view, that was normal and logical. Xia Shan hopes to follow Darren like before, Xia Shan said with a serious expression. Good. Zhuo Mo pressed his lips together tightly. He didn't know what to say but his heart felt warm and moved. Ma Fan, who had been nervous, seemed to be relieved of his burden and gave a blinding smile. No matter if it was Vermilion Bird Camp, Guard Camp, or the Forging Division, everyone's mouths uncontrollably opened, their grins reaching their ears. In an instantly, the cheers thundered. Chapter 325, This is. In the night, the 5 slave transporting boats silently advanced. Agui, we are going to Cloud Sea Jia, Zhuo Mo lightly said to Agui beside him. The puppet-like Agui was lifeless, appearing so fragile she invoked pity. Whenever he thought of Agui blocking the attack above Golden Crow City sacrificing herself in the process, Zhuo Mo felt his heart tremble. Lil, Black was still sleeping as usual, Lil, Pagoda and Lil, Fire were playing without worry but Silly Bird was acting out of the ordinary. She stood silently beside Agui, her gray feathers lightly trembling. Gong Sun Cha, Shu Long, Xia Shan, and the others were gathered on this slave-transporting boat. After Xia Shan entered Jin Dan, he left the Sky Peak Platoon to act as Zhuo Mo's personal guard. Ma Fan became the leader of Sky Peak Platoon, Nian Lu and Lei Peng his vice-commanders. In this period of time, the effect of continuous battle was very evident on everyone's development. There were 18 more Xiuzha of Vermilion Bird Camp that had comprehended sword essence. The number of people in Sky Peak Platoon had increased rather than decreased even with Xia Shan's departure, and reached a total of 30 people. The Forging Division hadn't been idle in this time. Due to the fact everyone used Golden Crow Fire, adopting the name Golden Crow Camp had received unanimous consent. Golden Crow Camp underwent further reorganization. The Forging Division was its most important division. Other than that, the Dan-making division and other divisions were made into separate branches of Golden Crow Camp. Of the 5 slave-transporting boats, 2 were especially set aside for Golden Crow Camp to construct specialized Dan-making and forging rooms. As their experience accumulated, everyone gradually created an effective system. Xia Shan, who had been resting, suddenly opened his eyes. He glanced in the distance and a light flashed through his eyes. This group of people are really not letting go. From the moment they had departed Hundred Flower Valley, there had been people following them along the entire way. Ignore them, Zhuo Mo said. Their travel was concealed as much as possible, but it could not be completely concealed from those with the intention to follow. These scouts were very alert, did not come close and only trailed from far away. After flying for another 4 hours, the ground underneath them turned from hills to plains. An enormous formation entered everyone's field of view. Whoa, so big. Powerful. Such a big transporting formation. The people on the slave transporting boats became excited, stretching their necks out to look at the enormous formation at the ground. The sky-water transporting formation was over 10 li in radius and was one of the largest transporting formations in sky-water Jie. In the darkness, the enormous transporting formation flashed with light that made it even more enchanting. Zhuo Mo's face was filled with shock. Of all the kinds of formations, transporting formations were famed for their difficulty. It was hard to imagine just how difficult it had been to make such an enormous formation. The transporting formations of Sky Moon Jia compared to this one were like toys that children played with. Sky Water Jia was much stronger and prosperous than Sky Moon Jia. This transporting formation was a evidence of the difference in wealth. Let's go down. The 5 slave transporting boats slowly landed. Vermilion bird camp spread out and went on their guard to stop others from coming close. Zhuo impatiently flew off the boat and into the air above the transporting formation. Gazing at the complex seal scripts of the transporting formation, he was full of admiration. Zhuo quickly found that this formation had many places that he could not understand. However, he was not rushed, but took out a blank jade scroll to record down all the seal scripts of the transportation formation so he could study it in the future. Such a waste. Yuxiuxia's stuff is just grand yet impractical. Pu Yao's voice sounded in Zhuo mind. He said temptingly, "Little Mo, come learn Yao arts. Yao arts are very useful." Zhuo ignored it and asked, "Pu, can you understand this formation?" Pu Yao deflated. "Don't understand," then he argued, "I'm a Yao, why do I need to understand your formations?" "If you don't understand, then shut up," Zhuo shot back. A hint of suspicion flashed across his mind. Why was Pu Yao recently tempting him to learn Yao arts? He couldn't help but think at the same time that the golden core had been a very substantial meal. Pu Yao was much more lively than in the past. If he ate a few more golden cores, would Pu Yao become a chatterbox? Zhuo shook and decided to guard against this. A person couldn't be overfed. After flying multiple circles in the air around the transportation formation, Zhuo landed. Even though there were many details on this transportation formation that he did not understand, but he did not find it difficult to use it. The 5 slave transporting ships flew inside the formation, and Zhuo started to bury Jingshi inside the formation. 124 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi. Zhuo's heart bled at the expenditure. After all 124 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi were embedded into the formation, the Jingshi lit up one after the other like stars being ignited in the sky. 10 breaths later, all 124 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi were lit up. If one looked down from the sky, they looked like stars. The light started from each pieces of Jingshi and flowed following the seal scripts. Looking at the complex seal scripts slowly light up, everyone felt curiosity and novelty. The seal scripts of the entire formation were activated. It was extremely crowded, grand and dazzled the eyes. The light suddenly left the seal scripts and slowly floated towards the sky. "Everyone, pay attention, we're leaving." The excited Zhuo couldn't help but yell. Before his words landed, everyone inside the formation disappeared. The blinding and grand light turned to countless pieces of light and scattered in the wind like rain. A moment later, 2 people appeared beside the formation. One of them was Yan Yang. Yan Yang's face was unusually excited. When he had learned of Zhuo's trip, he knew that they were going towards the sky-water transportation formation. They had hurried to get here first, and silently altered the formation to trick Zhuo. Yan Yang suppressed the ecstasy in his heart, and respectfully bowed to the person beside him. "Shu, many thanks for doing this." "It's nothing. I liked Gao Xiu too." "This is avenging him," this person said lightly. "However, you shall not move against Little Mountain City. If sky water Jia is in chaos, no one will benefit. The other sects will not agree. This disciple understands. Yan Yang couldn't help but ask, where will they be transported to? 3,000 Jia are like stars in the sky. Only the heavens know where they will go. This person waved his sleeve, and dots of light flew out. The dots entered the formation and some seal scripts silently changed. This has ended. Let's go. Yes. Zhuo looked in front of him at the sky that seemed to be dyed with blood and suddenly had a bad feeling. Gongsun Cha, Xia Shan, and the others also had serious expressions. Anyone could see that something wasn't right. This isn't Buddhist flower Jie. Zhuo said darkly. Sky water Jie didn't have a transportation formation connected directly to cloud sea Jie, so they had to first arrive in Buddhist flower Jie. There was a clear description of Buddhist flower Jie in Zhuo's Jie map. Buddhist flower Jie's seasons were all like spring, and the climate was mild. But what was in front of them? The air was filled with a stern killing energy. The sky was tinted with a strange red. Nothing grew on the soil beneath their feet. Zhuo reacted the quickest. He looked below him and his expression changed. Not good, someone did something to the transportation formation. The transportation formation under their feet was damaged and incomplete. It clearly had been many years since someone had used it. Many places had been worn away. Everyone's expression changed. Traveling among the Jia, this was the most frightening scenario. If they suddenly landed in a strange and barren Jia, there usually would be one ending, being trapped there until they died. Pooh, do you know where this is? Zhuo held one last thread of hope in his heart. No. You have to be careful. This place isn't right. Pu Yao's voice held a rare gravity. Zhuo's heart continuously sank. Damn it. Without any thought, Zhuo could generally guess who had done this. However, there was no meaning in determining who had been working from the shadows at the moment. Zhuo couldn't help but be nervous as it was the first time he had landed in a situation like this. In the past, no matter if it was Little Mountain Jia or Sky Water Jia, he had never been so nervous no matter how terrible the situation was. He didn't know what was up ahead. Were there people? Were there dangers? He didn't know anything. Ignorance was the terror in the deepest part of his heart. Nervousness and insecurity spread among the people. Zhuo forced himself to calm down. He knew he couldn't panic right now. He inhaled deeply and tried to make his voice calmer. We will go forward. Everyone, prepare to battle at any time. Zhuo's efforts were not wasted. Everyone saw that he kept his composure, and it was as though they found their spines. Their restlessness instantly disappeared greatly. At this time, Xu Long and Gongsun Cha also reacted, and quickly calmed down. The troop methodically started to move. The 5 slave transporting boats rose into the sky again and started to fly forward. As they kept on flying, everyone's expressions became even heavier. Desolate, a desolation that made everyone feel hopeless. After flying more than 100 li, they hadn't seen anything that was living. The ground was burnt black but held a hint of blood red. There was nothing growing. All the mountain peaks were bare and free of any life. Zhuo's mind suddenly moved. He channeled his Ling power, and his expression changed again. He turned and said to Gongsun Cha, get them to save their Ling power, the Ling energy here is too thin. Hearing this, Gongsun Cha's expression shifted slightly. He knew what this meant. The vermilion bird camp Xiuzha that had spread out quickly came back to the slave transporting boats. Now that the situation was so terrible, Zhuo actually completely calmed down. He said to Xu Long, you try. See what effects this place has on you guys. Xu Long hurried to activate his Mo skill. He quickly had a joyful expression. Darren, this place is very suitable for us to use Mo skills, it almost, he didn't know how to explain it. The black fiendish energy here is very heavy, Pu Yao opened again, and it has benefits for Shu Long and the others. Black fiendish energy. Zhuo Mo's mind moved. A type of special fiendish energy. They mostly appear on battlefields. This place is probably an old battlefield. However, Pu Yao suddenly stopped. However what? Zhuo asked impatiently. Such strong black fiendish energy means two things. One is that this place should have been a battlefield in the past, a battlefield that is very vast, and was the site of colossal battles. The other is time. It will take a long time to create such thick black fiendish energy. How long? Over 10,000 years. Hiss, Zhuo uncontrollably inhaled. 10,000 years. An ancient battlefield from 10,000 years ago, Zhuo murmured to himself. The desolate scene in front of him became even more vast and desolate. Xia Shan and Shu Long beside him changed expression upon hearing this. Xia Shan even gave an expression of disbelief. But, Pu Yao stopped in his words. But what? Zhuo suddenly shook and blurted. If this really is a battlefield, then a world-shaking and great battle was fought here. Such significant battles can be counted on the fingers. It is impossible that I do not know it. Pu Yao said gravely, but this place doesn't match the descriptions of any battlefield that I know of. Zhuo's face was ashen white upon hearing this. Coldness crept up his heart, and his limbs. Chapter 326, 10,000-year-old ancient battlefield, can we go back the way we came? Gongsun Cha asked Zhuo in a small voice. The ashen-pale Zhuo shook his head, and said in a low voice, we got tricked. The other changed the imprint on the transportation formation. This isn't one of the preset transportation formations, but a random transportation formation. You also saw the transportation formation under our feet. It is broken. Gongsun Cha was silent. Zhuo raised his awareness. Make sure everyone is careful. We managed to get out of Little Mountain Jie. We can definitely find a way out of this place. Hearing this, Gongsun Cha's expression became better. Xia Shan's expression was stern. He was now a Jindan and he was naturally different in all areas than everyone else. He silently savored the 10,000-year-old battlefield Zhuo had just said, and felt that it was possible as he felt the bone-piercing presence in the surroundings. However, since Boss recognized it, he felt slightly reassured. Boss' origins were still so deep and immeasurable. After flying for a long time forward, the front lines suddenly shifted. On high alert, Zhuo unhesitatingly went forward. When he flew to the front, he was dumbstruck where he stood. It was an enormous and shocking wasteland. Countless mountain peaks that had collapsed, soil that was burnt black everywhere, and there were large craters more than 10 li in radius everywhere. The scarred and charred land was shocking to see. This was a battlefield. Spread among those craters were bones that could not be counted. These bones were already weathered. When a harsh wind blew, the bones crumbled to powder. This scene that had only ever appeared in the legends and tall tales was endless. A vast and ancient presence blew in their faces. Everyone was so shocked they could not speak, including Pu Yao. Ancient battlefield, Xia Shan soullessly murmured to himself. The scene in front of him had given him an unparalleled blow. The marks left behind on the battlefield made him felt the terrifying power that could have destroyed the world at that time. He felt he was so small, like a speck of dust. Zhuo was the first to recover. When he saw Xia Shan's expression, he knew it was bad. Xia Shan had just entered Jindan and his cultivation was not stable. The sudden stimulation was too strong, and his mind was still extremely vulnerable to damage. At this time, he couldn't attend to anything else, shouting, "Remain alert." In these words, he used the clear sound incantation. Xia Shan shook and instantly regained his focus. He thought it had been very dangerous. Shu Long. Zuo shouted loudly. Shu Long felt embarrassed by his performance just now. His face blotching red, he bowed respectfully. Darren. We're going down. Zuo's eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed past. Darren. Shu Long hurriedly urged, the situation right now isn't clear, going down so rashly, you don't dare. Zuo interrupted him. His eyes were cold as knives. Shu Long felt a burst of hot blood rushing to his head. His black armor rattled as he said unhesitatingly, Shu Long obeys. He jumped up as he finished speaking. Mid-air, Shu Long's eyes glared angrily, the tendons tense and bulging without any of the caution and steadiness he usually held. His thunder-like bellow rang in the air, guard camp, to the ground. The 5 slave transporting boats were close together to start with. Shu Long and Zuo's exchange had not been concealed. All of guard camp heard it clearly. Guard camp, who had sworn to follow Zuo, was being doubted on their bravery by Zuo. The entire camp was blood-rushed as their eyes turned red. Yes. Guard camp shouted together as they jumped down. In the air, black shadows jumped down like large birds. The simultaneous shout of guard camp was like a gust of wind that swept the darkness off everyone's hearts. Morale rose greatly. Everyone of Vermilion Bird Camp that was staying on the slave transporting boats had shamed expressions. They had also clearly heard Zuo's question. They wanted to be able to charge at the very front at this moment. Gongsun Cha felt the same inside. When he had arrived here, he had put himself in a box. He really was lacking compared to Shixiang. Shixiang really was a natural leader. With just a few words, he had restored morale. Xia Shan felt even more shameful. He was a Jindan, but his resolve was not as strong as boss. We are going down, Zuo ordered with a cold face. The 5 slave transporting boats quickly descended until they were not 10 zhang from the ground. Shitty, you stay up here to command, Zuo said to Gongsun Cha before he turned his face. Silly bird, protect Agui. When he finished, he stepped off the slave transporting boat. Silly bird rolled her eyes, but obediently stood guard next to Agui. Zuo stepped onto the ground. The ground was as hard as steel with traces of red within the black. Zuo did not examine it closely, but shouted with a cold expression, advance. So what if it was a 10,000-year-old ancient battlefield? The troop rolled forward, Shu Long's body shrouded in black energy and brimming with killing intent as he charged at the very front. At this time, people no longer felt any terror. Morale was high. They wanted to see if any monster would pop up from somewhere so they could have a good fight. Zuo's face was cold as the troop advanced. He secretly paid attention to the surrounding environment. 10 li long ditches were everywhere. Zuo was suspicious that those were from sword energies. This place was filled with black fiendish energy. In a short while, the black energy on Shu Long and the others' bodies had become a few fractions denser. Zuo had decided to walk on the ground and not fly in the air after great thought. Due to the existence of the black fiendish energy, guard camp had become the primary fighting force. Guard camp was not skilled in aerial combat, so it was better to advance on the ground. Also, if they encountered something dangerous, Zuo didn't feel the air would be safer than the ground. Zuo glanced at the golden armor guards beside him and suddenly found that the golden armor guards were also absorbing black fiendish energy. At this moment, all of his attention was put in front of him and could not be spared for other matters. What he saw most frequently were bones. When these bones were touched, they would crumble and become dust. There would usually be some damaged items beside the skeletons, but after 10,000 years, they were just like the bones, turning to dust upon a touch. There was no life here, no living beings. On the way, there were only skeletons and scorched earth. They had traveled for a full 20 hours. Zuo raised his head to look at the blood-colored sky. It hadn't shown any change compared to before. Was there no day or night here? Based on their speed, they had already advanced more than 1,000 li, but there was no change in the scenery they passed. Zhuo suddenly raised his head. He noticed the black fiendish energy was much denser here than the location from 20 hours ago. Careful, we have been walking towards the center of the battlefield, Pu Yao warned. Everything here was beyond his knowledge. His tone was extremely grave. So that was why. Zhuo suddenly spoke, everyone, rest for a while. Hearing this, the fast-traveling troops stopped. Everyone sat down to rest. Xu Long and the others were wrapped in black energy. They did not feel any exhaustion and their energy was abnormally good. Will the black fiendish energy pose any danger to them? Zhuo asked Pu Yao. Pu Yao said, no. To them and the golden armor guards, black fiendish energy is the best substance. I have never heard of a place with such thick black fiendish energy. This is the best place for Xu Long and the others to cultivate. That's good. Zhuo's heart relaxed. He suddenly thought of a question. Pu, do you think there will be anything living here? The possibility is very low. Pu Yao's tone was very cautious. The scale of this battlefield eclipses any conflict that I know of. I really cannot think of any conflict that has been on such a scale. The black fiendish energy created after such a great battle is unparalleled in its brutality. Normal beings definitely cannot survive. What about shoujo like us? Or Yama? Zhuo said. That is possible. That's great. Zhuo seemed to see a thread of hope. Great? I don't think so. Pu Yao said with a cold smile, living long-term in a place with such thick black fiendish energy, one's personality would naturally be affected. Becoming brutal and fast to kill. Other than that, you need to be careful of fiendish soul beasts. Fiendish soul beasts? What is that? At dense areas of fiendish energy, over time, they will create low-level souls. Oh, their formation process is like that of Lil, fire, but they are born from fiendish energy, and are innately brutal and fond of killing. I've never seen fiendish soul beasts nurtured by black fiendish energy. Ha, this is interesting. After resting for a while, the troop departed again. 20 hours later, the surrounding environment still had not changed. If it wasn't that the density of black fiendish energy in the air had clearly increased, Zhuo would have been suspicious that they had entered a high-level illusory formation. After this rest, Zhuo did not let the troop immediately depart but set up camp. We need to rest. Gongsun Cha ran over to ask Zhuo, there is possibly danger ahead. I'm planning to get Xu Long and the others to cultivate before going forward, Zhuo said. So that's how it is. Gongsun Cha made a deep sound. He said with slight worry, the other people's situations are not good. The Ling power here is very thin. They can only use Jingshi to replenish their Ling power. Zhuo didn't have better methods. He could only say, just use Jingshi for now. He rejoiced now that they had taken enough Jingshi along and didn't have to worry in the short term. This was a habit they had formed from being in Little Mountain Jie. They had taken large amounts of Jingshi from Little Mountain Jie and hadn't spent much in Sky Water Jie. They had taken all of these Jingshi with them. Pu, do you have any methods? Zhuo was slightly troubled. I do know some methods of cultivating with black fiendish energy, but they have to start over their cultivation from the beginning. Pu Yao spread his hands. We can only take a step and look a step, Zhuo sighed. He started to search for jade scrolls on formations in his ring. He needed to take a good look at transportation formations. He probably had to rely on himself to make a transportation formation to leave this ghastly place. No formation could remain complete after 10,000 years, it was unlikely that they would find one. What he set up would be much more dependable. He had many jade scrolls in his ring, and jade scrolls on formations were something he was usually very enthusiastic about collecting. He took out all the jade scrolls on formations that he possessed. Piled up in front of him was a little mountain. If he could chew through this little mountain, they would be able to leave this ghastly place. Suemo continued to brainwash himself. Just as he was preparing to start, he saw Ching Shidi, who had been buried in the nursery on the slave-transporting boats and never showed his face, suddenly jump out of the slave-transporting boats. He stumbled as he ran over, his expression panicked. Shi Xiang! Shi Xiang! Come quickly to see. Chapter 327, Twin Butterflies. Suemo raced with Chun Yuqing towards his nursery room. This was the first time he had went to one of Ching Shidi's rooms. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of shame. There were too many matters he had to attend to every day, and he had not paid any attention to any of Ching Shidi's matters. Ching Shidi's husbandry room had been divided into several areas. After he took a close look, he was very shocked. Each section was its own standalone beast pool. When had Ching Shidi been able to construct the beast pool by himself? Shidi, you don't know. When it came out, it was different compared to the rest of its species. Chun Yucheng's expression wasn't good. His soul seemed shaken, but he felt reassured with Suemo at his side. Shidi, you made these beast pools yourself? Suemo interrupted him. Yes, Chun Yucheng clearly did not pay attention to Suemo's question. The conversation's focus quickly returned to the matter at hand. It is a 9th-generation Ling butterfly. There were 200 that were of the same brood as it. Shidi, this part of the formation isn't quite the same as what I did before, Suemo said as he pointed at a formation script on the beast pool. Did I change it incorrectly? Chun Yucheng embarrassedly rubbed his head. I felt that place wasn't too complete, so I tried to change it. I found the effects are pretty good, so I kept using it. Suemo's shock increased as he hurriedly waved his hand. No, you didn't do anything wrong. If Shidi feels it is effective, then use it. So without him noticing it, Chun Shidi's husbandry skills had reached such a high level. Oh, that's great. Chun Yucheng released a breath, but his expression tensed again. He refocused on his original topic. Shi Xiang, when this one came out, it swallowed a Ling butterfly. I was slightly surprised. I've raised Ling butterflies for this long, but have never seen one as savage as this. Chun Yucheng finally was able to pull Suemo's attention to the topic. He couldn't help but follow. Then, Chun Yucheng swallowed. It devoured more than 100 Ling butterflies. I thought that it would eat all the Ling butterflies if it kept on going, so I put it together with some poisonous worms. I started to raise these poisonous worms in Little Mountain Jie. They are very vicious, and have great potential. I speculated that if I raised them for a bit longer, after 2 or 3 generations, it may produce a 5th-grade Ling beast. Hearing this, Suemo's curiosity was completely stirred up. And then, when I went to look a few days later, Chun Yucheng's expression was slightly terrified. Those poisonous worms had all died. Their bodies were deathly gray without a hint of life. Shi Xiang, you know, I'm pretty familiar with Ling butterflies, but I've never heard of such an evil Ling butterfly. Looking at the trace of terror remaining in Ching Shidi's face, Suemo was even more curious. It was a pity to throw the poisonous worms out. I had originally planned on using the husks but didn't expect the exoskeleton, claws, and teeth of the worms had no Ling energy left. Ching Shidi's voice became filled with anticipation. At that time, I knew this Ling butterfly wasn't a simple one. Suemo knew that if the matter was just like this, Ching Shidi would not be so nervous. He asked, did something unexpected happen? Worry floated onto Chun Yucheng's face. Starting from yesterday, it suddenly became extremely restless, and kept on charging towards the outside of the beast pool. This Ling butterfly is really powerful. I noticed that the beast pool can't hold it for much longer, and I can't suppress it any longer, so I hurried to find Shi Xiang. At this time, the two of them arrived at a beast pool. Suemo finally saw the Ling butterfly that Ching Shidi spoke about. At first glance, he was very shocked. The wings of this Ling butterfly were different colors, one black and one white, and were without any blemishes. The most unique part were the two antennae. A ball of mist floated at the end of each antenna, also black and white. It was possible to make out the figures of two little people within the two balls of mist. But what truly shocked Zuemo was the faint presence released by the Ling butterfly. This presence was extremely weak, but it was very clear, and made Zuemo think of that 5th grade bloody-horned serpent. Was this a 5th grade Ling butterfly? This Ling butterfly is very unique. Chen Yucheng had a proud expression. I call it the twin butterfly. The twin butterfly noticed Zuemo, and instantly had a wary expression. Zuemo's mind moved, and he released a thread of the presence of the great Damo physique. The twin butterfly was shocked and shrank back to the corner of the beast pool. Such an intelligent Ling butterfly. Zuemo praised inside. He was even more sure that this twin butterfly wasn't far from 5th grade. Thinking about this, he knocked on the beast service card at his waist. The black butterfly flew out. After the rainbow mark butterfly leveled into the black butterfly, it was 4th grade, and one step away from 5th grade. When the black butterfly flew out, it noticed the twin butterfly. It seemed to be slightly wary of the twin butterfly. At this time, the mist at the two ends of the twin butterfly's antennae flew out like a bolt of intertwined black and white lightning that accurately struck the black butterfly. The black butterfly froze on its spot as its vitality quickly flowed away. In a flick of the finger, the black and white mist flew back into the beast pool. Hiss, Zuemo and Chen Yucheng inhaled sharply. The change was so sudden. Zuemo hadn't thought the black and white mist of the twin butterfly could ignore the Jinji of the beast pool. As the black and white mist entered the body of the twin butterfly, Zuemo sensitively detected the presence of the twin butterfly had greatly increased. He saw the colors of the black and white wings of the twin butterfly were even purer, and the greatest changes were in the two little people in the balls of mist. The features of the two little people in the mist were more distinct than before. They were the size of a thumb as they floated in the mist. Such an eerie and weird Ling butterfly. Just as Zuemo was astonished, Pu Yao suddenly spoke, this yin-yang twin butterfly is a little interesting. Yin-yang twin butterfly? Zuemo's reaction was extremely quick. This shitty of yours really does have some skill to be able to raise such a rare Ling butterfly. Pu Yao first praised Chen Yucheng before he said, I've never seen a yin-yang twin butterfly before, so my knowledge is limited. This twin butterfly of your shitties is slightly different than the yin-yang twin butterfly I know of. Take a look with your Ling eye. Zuemo hurriedly opened his Ling eye and saw threads of black energy continuously fly into the beast pool and enter the body of the twin butterfly. Black fiendish energy. Zuemo inhaled sharply again. It is absorbing black fiendish energy. Your shitty has raised something good. Pu Yao reminded, quick, get it into the beast service card. Remember to first use the great Damo physique. Receiving Pu Yao's guidance, Zuemo hurriedly explained the situation to Qing Shidi. Qing Shidi was both surprised and joyful. He hurriedly said, Shixiang, quick, tame it. Chen Yucheng's cultivation was too low. There wasn't a problem when he was raising Ling beasts, but he did not have the power to tame a powerful Ling beast like the twin butterfly. Even Zuemo needed to use the power of the great Damo physique to tame the twin butterfly. Zuemo did not hesitate and took out an empty beast service card. Activating the great Damo physique, the light void wings on his back appeared. The husbandry room was filled with a tangible pressure. All the Ling beasts in the beast pools curled up in balls as they shook. The two little people on the tips of the twin butterfly's antennae trembled. It seemed to have realized something, but the powerful pressure of the great Damo physique made it lower its wings. Seeing the situation, Zuemo unhesitatingly cut his finger to squeeze out a drop of blood to throw at the twin butterfly as he cast a spell at the same time, calling out, in. The black and white wings of the twin butterfly shook, and it did not dare to dodge. The drop of blood and the spell quickly permeated it when it touched the wings like water sinking into sand. In a moment, a bloody crescent mark appeared on each of the black and white wings. The twin butterfly turned into a light of intermingling black and white and entered the beast card. Two little people, one black and one white, floated onto the surface of the beast service card back to back. 5 stars lit up the back of the beast service card. Chen Yucheng and Zhua Mo both had joyous expressions. This twin butterfly was a 5th grade Ling butterfly. I raised a 5th grade Ling butterfly. I raised a 5th grade Ling butterfly. The ecstatic Chen Yucheng murmured, unable to say anything else. It had been his dream to raise a 5th grade Ling butterfly. He had talent in husbandry, but he was from a small sect. Compared to the disciples from the large sects, the resources he could receive were limited. Raising a 5th grade Ling butterfly was his limit. He had always worked towards this target. But today, the goal that he thought he would need to struggle towards for a lifetime had already been achieved. He felt he was dreaming and it was unrealistic. Among the joyfulness was a thread of confusion. The greatest goal of his life had been completed so easily. Looking at the excited yet bewildered Qing Shidi, Zhua Mo smiled. He understood Qing Shidi's mood very well. He shoved a jade scroll into Qing Shidi's hand and then left the husbandry room. Chen Yucheng was excited for a long time, after he finally calmed down and found a jade scroll in his hand. He reflexively inspected the contents and became dumbstruck as though he was struck by a bolt of lightning. Zhua Mo walked out of the slave-transporting boat and found Bao Yi to tell him to not short Qing Shidi on any materials he requested. Bao Yi hurriedly agreed. Inside, he celebrated his carefulness. He had always tried to satisfy all of Chen Yucheng's requests. In his view, Chen Yucheng did not ask about matters, but he was boss Shidi. It seemed that he had acted correctly. The jade scrolls Zhua Mo had given Chen Yucheng included all of the content on the beast pools. The modifications Chen Shidi had made to the beast pool caused him to realize his Shidi's exceptional talent in husbandry. He decided to give everything about the beast pool to Qing Shidi to study. The present Qing Shidi needed a completely new goal. He summoned the twin butterfly and examined this unique Ling butterfly. He had to admit that only a maniac like Qing Shidi could raise such a unique Ling butterfly based on the disorderly and fragmented jade scrolls Zhua Mo had given him and his own knowledge. However, he then creased his brow. If Qing Shidi wanted to progress another step, he would face a problem: cultivation. Qing Shidi would find it difficult to suppress any action of a 5th grade Ling beast. The twin butterfly had been a very lucky incident. Another with the same problem was Gongsun Shidi. Zhua Mo had learned more about battle generals, and knew that battle generals had a system of unique cultivation spells. The demands on cultivation of beginner battle generals were not high, but as they progressed, the demands on cultivation increased. This was really a troublesome problem. Zhua Mo frowned and sank into deep thought. He did not notice the actions of the twin butterfly. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.